leather.
Purple leather, green leather.
Red, green, yellow. Oh, nope,
Name
that's not
any other
it.
colors?
Green, leather, purple leather. Okay.
This is podcast gold. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm having this weird thing now where I feel this urge to introduce ourselves.
Yeah,
even
let's
though
go
we never
for it.
used to do
Let's-
that.
let's
at the start
restart
of
it.
episodes. Great, love that.
Season 2.
Season
You
2.
guys don't feel it.
refresh. Yeah. Hi, I'm Siena.
I'm Al.
And welcome to Splice Splatter, the official film podcast of the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror.
It's modern gore. That felt weird.
That really
It
did
was
feel
very
weird. I don't think that was a
professional.
good idea on my part.
Wasn't a fan, but that's fine.
No, me either. Aggressively
You
not
got
a
your
fan.
zoomies out, so.
Thanks, Al. Or did we just encourage them?
Might have.
Yeah, that's.
I got my
we're gonna
coffee,
find out.
so we might hear jingling of because I just moved.
Oh,
so
you did just move.
I'm
Al's
we're
in a new
like
space.
I know
This is exciting.
I have room for the first time in
Yeah.
a long, like almost a decade. It feels like.
I
but
feel like
like 8
your
years.
newly claimed office space is going to have a lot of horror stuff very soon.
With knives and swords or horror
I'd
stuff.
say it's
I have-
horror adjacent.
You know what's funny? I don't know if anyone else listening is like this. For being such a big fan of horror, I don't really decorate that way. Not anymore.
Interesting. See,
I
I have
did.
so many horror posters in my house.
Yeah.
From Morgan Crypt actually last September. Wow,
Yeah.
what is time?
Yeah.
I have like a giant ass Candyman poster that's like up on the
Oh.
ceiling of my attic now.
Ooh,
When
on
one
the
of-
ceiling's fun.
When one of my when my AC, the person who pulls focus
Yeah.
for the movie, when they were staying at my house, they were staying under the Candyman poster. I was like, "How did you sleep?" And they were like, "Well,
I heard
Candyman was
buzzing, yeah.
staring at me all night, so not great."
Yeah,
Sienna."
made sure not to say his name
Yeah.
a few times. Heard a
Yep.
slight buzzing. That was weird.
Uh-huh,
It's winter. That'd
Tony
be
Todd's voice
terrifying.
started emerging from the walls. That would be fun. That I could be down for.
I was
but-
gonna say just a little Tony Todd thing. I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone like the news has been out for a while
Mhm.
now, but the new Final Destination that comes out in May, which is when we want to
Bloodlines?
finally cover Final Destination on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's his last film appearance.
Which it feels appropriate to bring that into the mix
Yeah.
since this is our first time returning to Clive Barker territory
Oh my god.
since covering Candyman at the
Oh,
very
yeah.
beginning of the
Oh my
podcast.
God.
Because what are we covering today?
Oh, I'm so excited. Like this pairing, I feel like
this is yeah.
well, I'm doing Re-Animator.
Beefy.
I'm doing Re-Animator, which is 1985.
And I'm doing Hellraiser from '87, which is I think
I'm so
almost
excited.
this is as close as our films have ever been. Same
Is
with I
it?
think the Witchwell pairing; those were also 2 years
Oh,
apart, but like
yeah.
it's 2 or 4. But anyway,
Yeah.
point being, these are very much of a time and of an era of horror.
Such a good
and-
era.
Yeah, and such a good pairing.
I know.
So
And yeah,
Ugh.
I was gonna say I've been like dying for you to see Hellraiser. I think since we started talking about the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
So,
because you've seen it before, right?
oh my god.
Okay.
So many times.
great.
I
Love that.
love Hellraiser.
Love that. Do you
so
know a lot
much.
about the making of it?
No. That's
Okay, thank
I feel
God.
like that's me with like a lot of films.
A lot
is
of
I
them,
can be
yeah.
obsessed with them, but I'm not. That's not my kind of autism. I don't go
Oh,
like.
that
film
is my kind of
facts.
autism. In case you couldn't tell.
I don't go like film. Like I don't dive in after.
I can't help myself.
yeah.
But anyway, so
So yeah, nothing.
I'm glad that-
clean slate.
great because I
Yeah.
have. I think we told each other beforehand. You have like 11 pages of notes.
Yeah, we're beefed up on this one. 11, yeah, like 11, 12
I have
pages.
15
That's
now.
wild.
And that was me stopping myself. I didn't
just saw
let
myself
myself watch the behind the scenes video.
Oh, we should. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say we both have had. So this has gotten pushed back because everyone stay healthy out there. Everyone's
All
getting
of
hit
the
with
illnesses are going around Santa Fe right
yeah.
now.
So I'm like 2 weeks removed. We just
Mhm.
calculated right before. I'm almost
Mhm.
2 weeks removed from my notes.
Yeah.
And then I went to go watch. There was a behind the scenes making of
Uh-huh.
mine too,
Uh-huh.
which is awesome. I think that's the first time we both really had robust behind the scenes. And I remember taking notes. I took notes on the behind the scenes for about an hour and change. I was only 6 minutes into the fucking behind
I remember you telling me that
video.
yesterday and like wild.
So I
like-
only got 30 minutes into
Yeah,
it because
like-
I was like, I have to stop.
This truly, if we were to let it, this could so easily be like a
We could do
4-hour
one-on-one.
episode.
Yeah. I think we could just
Yeah.
focus on one at a time.
Oh,
but
and it would be as long as our usual episodes.
Yeah.
Like we set ourselves up for a wild ride
I
today.
know. I don't even know like where to. Yeah. So
Yeah. So you're going first.
I am. I'm happy.
Yeah.
About that.
I finished watching your movie last night. I like broke it up into 3 chunks.
Uh-huh.
Because I've been like trying to do a little bit of editing in the evening
Oh,
each night.
nice.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'll do like 2 hours of editing and then like a
Treat
half
yourself to-
hour of
It's
treating myself to
so
some
interesting to watch
Re-Animator.
it in chunks.
And I thought that
Would you advise that?
no, no, I would not, everybody. I really would not, especially because I like got really into it the first 2 nights. And so I watched like uneven amounts and I got up
Mm.
until like,
Did you have like 10 minutes left?
yeah, I turned it off before the
Oh.
last 15 minutes and watched
my God,
just the
so
last
much
15
happens?
minutes last night. And
You
I,
watched
like,
3 different films.
I really did. It was a wild ride.
Yeah.
I remember going home last night and being like, how much could possibly happen that I'm not going to expect in those last 15 minutes?
So much.
So much.
So much. The ending is dense in Re-Animator.
I had paused like right when the severed head is like looking over at I can't remember any characters' names.
Oh,
but
yeah. Me either.
Dr.
Really.
Hill, I think, is
Yeah.
looking over at the girlfriend's like nude body. That was where I'd paused, and I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, I'll be fine."
That's
To
a
just like,
depressing end that you just
Yeah.
came back to.
it sure was. It
Oh,
was
man.
a sour note to end on.
Yeah. Well, oh, man.
But so
You
yeah,
have to watch it in one chunk.
I really
instead.
do. I don't recommend that, but I had a great time. Like it's what. Wow.
Yeah, you
What
hadn't
a
seen
movie. I
either.
hadn't seen either, and you'd seen both, which I think
Yeah.
maybe the first time.
No, I feel
that's
like
the
I
case.
don't think so.
Really?
Where you've seen neither?
Where I've seen
and
neither,
I've
and
seen
you've
both?
seen
Yeah,
both.
that actually might be
Yeah.
the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Re-Animator for the first time. I did one of those like October Halloween
Oh, I
lists of what
remember
to
seeing
watch.
that on your
Yeah,
stories. Yeah.
yeah. So Re-Animator was one of them, and it's one I feel like everyone fucking knows about, or everyone's fucking seen,
Mhm.
but us. I have no idea. But watched in October and was like, oh, this fucks so
Yeah.
hard. This era of like B horror gore, bright
Mhm.
colors, and I don't know. It's just so.
It felt very like a throwback to 60s B horror. Like it felt like Vincent Price or
Oh, for
Hammer
sure.
horror,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about a lot of the inspiration for it, but yeah,
That-
for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I watched. We kind of both said, because we had to put this off, I kind of, again, with the move and everything, I normally have a projector in my room,
Right.
and I've been a sleepy little bean.
Aw,
And so I don't want
moving's
to stay in,
hard.
and so I don't want to stay in the living room to watch a movie once it's like 7 o'clock, because I am
no.
an old man at heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I haven't had anything in the bedroom. Finally got a TV last night. Used to have a
Nice.
projector. I had my projector. It started to finally like shit the bed. I've had it since 2020. Shout out Karen Georgia
Yeah.
from My Favorite Murder. They gave it to us for
Aw,
Christmas.
That's such a great pandemic era gift.
Oh, I had
Yeah.
COVID when I got it, so it actually
Aw,
saved
that's
my life.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it finally shit the bed. Put a TV in there last night. Went to go watch Re-Animator.
Mhm.
Couldn't find it anywhere, but it was on YouTube, so I was
Yeah,
able to
that's
watch
where
it
I
on
watched
YouTube.
it too.
Okay, yeah, but I like panicked. I was like, great, I
Yeah.
really am not going to be able to watch this film for the
Ye-
first time,
Yeah.
which was my fear.
Yep, I remember we had a conversation
Yeah.
about the fact that you'd been having like stress dreams about.
Yeah, I've had
this. Yeah,
I've had multiple alarms every single day as a reminder to watch this film. So we got there, we rewatched it.
Yep.
It was very fresh in my brain, anyways. But
did it feel
um,
different on a second watch?
I think I just like knew what to expect this time. So it
That
was like,
makes sense.
I feel like the first watch was like really fun because it was such a wild
such a
ride
wild
of like,
ride.
what the fuck?
It
yeah.
was very like emblematic of my viewing experience that when I went to look up Re-Animator and then couldn't find it,
Oh, gosh.
then I started typing in "is Re-Animator" and I was
Is
going
Re-Animator?
I was going to
Question
type
mark.
"is Re-Animator streaming
Why
anywhere?"
Re-Animator?
And the
How
first,
Re-Animator?
the first search result, Al, was
No.
"is Re-Animator queer?" And I was like,
that sets us up for something I'll be asking at the end of
Yes!
the yeah.
Oh,
We have a
amazing.
tiny desk.
"Yes, oh, I'm so glad because I have nothing."
Yeah.
Which
Oh.
is like the first time in a long time because I was like, there's just too much with the film itself.
Yeah.
I was at 15 pages without doing
Yeah.
the film theory rant corner. There wasn't going to be time.
I know,
so-
we really did. It's hard to stop sometimes, I
Yeah,
realize, which
it's,
like
uh,
high school me would never believe it's hard for me to stop
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, it's
I wanna
really
keep
doing the
going.
extra credit here.
To start, do you have a tidbit?
I do,
Me
but I
too.
believe it's a Hellraiser specific one. Do you want to?
Oh, mine's a
anyway?
specific one too.
Okay,
So yeah.
perfect.
Do you want to save it or do you want a tidbit?
Um,
Tidbit now, tidbit later?
Let me save it because
Save it?
it's a good segue into Hellraiser.
Mine's like such a random thing. So there, I have a few, but I'm just gonna read one of them. So we're jumping in. Re-Animator. David Gale, who plays the doctor, the creepy
Oh,
Dr. Hill.
yeah.
I think you are right. It's
He
Carl
looks
Hill.
really familiar, and I don't know
I
what
said he
from.
reminds me of oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting his name from the Breakfast Club. The
Oh!
nerd. David
Oh!
C. With Anthony
David
Hall.
Anthony
Michael Anthony Hall.
something Hall. It's a three word name, and the last one is
He
Hall.
looks like a weird version of him, like a really old version of him, especially
that's
after,
creepy.
which makes it creepier for me.
Ugh,
Did he remind you of anyone
ugh.
specific?
I never. Oh, I just remembered. He's reminding me of like, um, I think Mexican actor from a movie called The Castle of Purity from the
That's so
1970s.
random.
Yeah, nobody
Leave
else
the
is gonna
fucking
know
room.
about this. Sorry, guys.
Thank you.
You
That
asked,
was
I
a wonderful.
answered.
Just a little.
Nobody's gonna-
Everyone, perfect example of a peek into Siena's psyche. That was
It's horrible in here,
so
you
random.
guys.
So moving on.
Yeah, nobody else is. I don't think he's the same person.
yeah,
He
that
looks
guy.
like. I don't
that's
know.
exactly who I
This
was
is not a
thinking.
good fact, everybody. Let's move on quickly.
We'll move on to this atrocious fact that I'm about to spill.
Great.
A little bit of tea, a little bit of drama.
Ooh.
So the actor, his name's David Gale. So when he first saw his wife, like, I don't know if it was like a screening or a pre-screening or whatever, but his wife was in a theater watching the film and came to the infamous giving head scene.
Which, wow.
It's disgusting.
Wow.
So same, she had the same reaction. She apparently stormed out and was like screaming, "How could you?" and kind of like left wherever the fuck she was, which is also confirmed by the director Stuart Gordon that this happened. And so after the film like fully released, fully was out there in the DVD audio commentary, they kind of talk about it, but him and his wife got divorced shortly after the release. And so in the commentary, the cast kind of speculates that scene is the reason that they
Ended their
got a
marriage.
divorce.
I mean,
Which is really, do you think she just looked at him and got the like ultimate ick?
yeah, I
And she's like,
feel like she
can't
was
go
just like,
on.
there was something that was a little too real there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
yeah. Which, like,
it's
honestly, there is.
horrifying.
That entire plot line with Dr. Hill, I was like, okay, so he is the villain of the whole movie. Like,
He's like
he is so disgusting, and there's something about it that
you can't act that well.
Yeah.
So I think
it
she
feels
saw
a little too real.
Yeah. So that's my
Wow.
awful fact.
Good
that
for
I'm
her.
good for
I'm deciding.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Honestly, I'm
Yeah.
with it. So obviously we know this film's like, I'm just gonna kind of jump into the rating. I don't know why I completely did not put it. Oh, I do have a description, but kind of going off of like how disgusting it was. The film initially never gave the rating by the MPA. Wait, what did I write? The film initially was never given a rating by the MPAA. The filmmakers kind of knew it was going to be given an X because of the content.
I mean, you see Bush.
Like full bush and ding dongs.
Yes.
Which I gotta say, love to see. We see so many boobs.
Yeah.
And occasional bush.
Yeah, it's nice to see the
Other
full
anatomy.
Monty.
Yeah. I always love it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. I'm like,
it's
we gotta even
satisfying.
that out.
Yeah,
And just make bodies
absolutely.
neutral.
Just make bodies bodies.
Yeah.
Just make bodies bodies.
Just make bodies.
Yeah.
And then cut their heads off.
Perfect.
So yeah,
and then have them give you head.
Yeah. And then get divorced.
Perfect.
The end. Re-Animator was such a great film.
Moving on to Hellraiser.
Yeah, so they kind of knew they weren't going to get a good rating. They eventually had an R rating version that replaced most of the gore, and deleted scenes later, which came out on VHS. But I'm just like, you can't really watch this movie without that. So
It's essential. Like
it is the purpose as we move through. You will hear Stuart Gordon wanted this, and he literally was on set. Actors recall him just constantly being like, more. He just wanted more gore, more gross, more nudity, more like he just wanted to go for it. And he
man after my own heart.
yeah. So again, I think it was called Re-Animator, like Resurrection, the making of the film that you can watch on YouTube. And he is just the cutest little bean. So we'll get to him in a minute, but I want to read. I'm not going to read description. Should I read description?
Read the
Okay,
description.
so
Yeah.
after after an odd new medical student arrives on campus,
Might we call him queer?
yeah,
Bum, bum, bum.
yeah, very gay new medical
Yes.
student. So arrives on campus, a dedicated local and his girlfriend become involved in a bizarre experiment centering around the reanimation of dead tissue. Tissue.
Ugh,
Um,
gross word.
yeah, so they kind of wanted to lead with this. One of the producers, Brian Uzana, which you can see this is like presented by him. His fingerprints are all over this.
Cool.
He said, quote, they wanted it to be, quote, a sort of shock sensibility of an Evil Dead with the production values of hopefully The Howling,
Oh,
which I think is a
interesting.
great way to kind of describe
That-
this film and set
yeah.
us up for what to expect.
It feels like they achieved
I
that.
think so,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that feels
Especially
like
that slapstick of Evil Dead.
It exists in a similar tonal space, I feel like. And it also,
Abso-fucking-lutely.
there were parts of it that reminded me a lot also of Dawn of the Dead, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I guess they're coming out the same year, right? If yours is 85?
85?
Yeah, I think that.
I forget dates on films.
All
the
It might
time.
be 75, and then Day of the Dead is 85, I think. Anyway,
Yeah, day is, or, yeah.
one of
guys
them's
know.
85. This is not
As we're
interesting.
screaming.
Move on,
So
move on.
taglines, we have the official tagline I'll read, and then we have some other ones.
Amazing.
One again is like very long. So the official tagline is, "It will scare you to pieces."
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's good.
it is. It's
I
very
like
solid
that.
for being kind of a schlocky.
Yeah.
The other ones are very on the nose. So H.P. Lovecraft's classic tale of horror, which there's a lot of separation with H.P. they did with this.
I imagine.
Death is just the beginning. ...
Oh, that's so Hellraiser.
Yeah.
That's ooh.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
That's a good
then here's the long, awful one.
Yes.
Herbert West has a very good head on his shoulders and another one in the dish on his desk.
Oh my god.
I need a shirt. I need a shirt that
That's
says that.
Yeah, that
And then
sounds
just
like
head
the
on dish.
set up for a sitcom.
Yeah, that's why I read it like that. Herbert West, and it's like do like Truman Show.
The intro is like him dancing with the severed head.
Yeah, it's just the head turn everywhere, like Full House, and they
it
just like
sings-
look at
the head
camera.
sings the theme song.
Yeah, I don't know why Full House is where I went, but so yeah, those are the taglines. Amazing. If someone wants to mock with a shirt, I will absolutely wear the fuck out of it. So like I said, director Stuart Gordon. I feel like he kind of has fingerprints all over my childhood too. He wrote this story for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, as well as the characters for Honey, We Blew Up the Baby, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, and the TV series Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So very familiar with his work.
Good,
That was
good,
my
good.
entire childhood.
He carved out a niche.
Yeah.
Did Stuart Gordon.
For sure. He also did a lot of horror as well, though. So I think he kind of did that to make his money.
That makes sense.
And then did his side projects. So he did the 90s Body Snatchers.
Oh,
I haven't seen it, so I don't know anything about it.
the 90s Body
There's a
Snatchers.
90s one.
Oh.
Forget who's in it, but there's like
Interesting.
people.
Cool.
He also did some more B horror called Castle Freak, which I really want to see.
Of that.
The Dentist and the Dentist 2.
Oh my! It should be The Dentist Tooth.
The Dentist 230. God damn it, Stuart.
Come on, it was right there.
Change the name. Petition. But Re-Animator was actually Stuart's directorial debut.
Wow.
For
this is a
the
good
screen. Yeah.
directorial debut. Go
Wild
Stuart.
stamp to put
Yeah.
on like the rest of your
Yeah.
career. So I have a little
What
bit
a calling card.
yeah. So I have a little like Stuart Gordon lore is what I
Amazing.
wrote. So he was the artistic director for the Organic Theater Company in Chicago for 15 years. And it was him and his wife that ran it. She actually plays Dr. Herod in the film,
Oh,
which is cute. So she has a little
interesting.
cameo.
Aw.
And they started the company together in 1969. And she said they actually used the money they got from their wedding gifts to form this theater group together. So they were like, thank you, going here. Thank you, going here. Yeah. So very creative couple, which feel like we love
That's the
so much.
that's the goal.
It's truly
That's
the
the
goal.
goal.
They're very cute. Again, they have interviews in the behind the scenes. So again, I only got 30 minutes in, so there's more to
Yeah.
watch on this. So the theater company is kind of how they entered onto the horror film scene. They said because of the nature of what they were already doing, they kind of had access to this talent pool and kind of thought about always wanting to create a film for the actors
Mm.
that they had. So
Oh, I
they
love
always kind of
that.
envisioned going this route at some point just to be able to put the actors that they loved in something on the screen. So
That's
so
so
cute.
inspiring.
Yeah, and one of their friends actually said like you should really do horror film because I don't agree with this, but he said it's the easiest genre for you to get backing for. The
Interesting.
easiest genre to do versus backing. I just found that
Very,
a little
very
I
different
feel like people don't want
things.
to back
Yeah.
horror.
I think people underestimate horror. I think
Yeah.
horror is treated as a lesser genre.
That's why I think it's interesting they said that it would be
Yeah.
easiest to get money for, 'cause I'm like, most people
I think it's in some way what I will say about horror is relative to other genres, it's comparatively cheap to make a horror
that's what
film.
that's the only thing I can kind of come up with is they're like, you
Yeah.
can throw a little bit and probably get at least a return.
Like it's an easier place because there are those of us who love horror,
Yeah.
and if we see something that looks like it actually has the potential to scare us,
Yeah.
we're more willing, I think, to take a chance on something from a new director with
Right,
people
right,
we
right.
don't recognize that's low budget. Like I
Right.
think there's more of like a forgiving nature to the horror
For
community in
sure, for sure.
some
And everyone
ways.
that worked on this was super passionate about horror.
I
So
love that.
he was always been a fan of horror himself. So when someone
Mm-hmm.
said that, he was like, absolutely.
Interesting. I love that.
Um
It makes me happy to hear that he is a horror
Oh, yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah. So,
Like,
particularly Frankenstein, which I'm gonna say put a pin in
interesting.
Frankenstein, we'll kinda come back to that, but he's always been a fan, so he was like, "Great, cool."
Hmm.
We'll get more into the story of, like, how the script came to be. I actually have a
Cool.
lot of information. So, the writers we have obviously credited this is a H.P. Lovecraft
Hmm.
story. The short story was called Herbert West Re-Animator, which was written between October of 1921 and June of 22 and was
Has
first serialized in February through July 1922 after in a amateur publication called Homebrew, which is a great
interesting. That
name.
is a great name.
Um, and it was actually stated or cited as one of the first times there was depictions of zombies as scientifically
Ah,
reanimated corpses, with
interesting.
this kind of like animalistic, like
Yeah.
angry temperament that they had. So it was kind of the first
Wow.
time that was put out there, which I did not realize.
That makes me really want to read Herbert
Yeah,
West
yeah,
Reanimator, which I
yeah.
feel like we probably carry at Beasley because we do carry a lot of H.P.
We do.
Lovecraft. But
You know he's
yeah.
ugh.
Yep.
Um,
Complicated dude, but
yeah,
wrote
and
some scary horror.
yeah, he actually admits H.P. Lovecraft admits that he never really liked the Re-Animator
Huh.
stories he wrote, um,
Interesting.
because they only got him $5 per installment. So he was like, "I'm not getting paid for these, so like fuck
So
these."
I don't
So
like that.
which I kind of get. Like if he's writing all these other things that are making him money, he's like,
Yeah.
"Whatever." This is kind of like sure, it just gets out there.
That's funny
But I'm like,
because
there's
yeah.
I don't know, there's good stuff in there. We also have William Norris. He was the first writer on the project. And he doesn't have a ton of like credits of things he's done before, but mainly like this and then a 1991 adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum, which I feel like I watched
Oh,
in
interesting.
school at some point.
I watched a Pit in the Pendulum, but it was like a 1960s version, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I
I'm not
love
sure.
Edgar Allan Poe. So, we have the last writer and the writer I would say on the
Mm-hmm.
project is Dennis Paoli. I believe that's how you say his name. He is credited as like a secondary writer on this. He also did the 1993 Body Snatchers as well as the 1986 From Beyond, Ghoulies 2, and then also worked with Stewart on his other projects. So he worked on Castle Freak, Dentist 1, and Dentist Tooth.
Tooth. Amazing.
And then he also was I thought this was really cool. In the interview I found out later, he was a teacher that taught Gothic fiction. So this was like very much up his element of things.
That's
So I love like
love that.
it'd
Yeah.
be so cool to have a teacher teaching a literary class and they also wrote screenplays for
That's so
horror
sad
films.
to
I would be like, you are
say.
my
Yeah.
and he seems
That's
so
the
cool. He would have been
dream.
like my teacher.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then Stuart Gordon, who is not cited, obviously
I'm
this is
sure.
like his baby and his
Yeah.
project. So he helped write all the initial concepts and screenplays. And yeah, his kind of process is kind of wild. So again, I'm teeing up to get into everything later. So we have cinematographer Mac Allberg,
Uh-huh.
who is known for Ghoulies, the movie Dolls, and
Amazing.
in a wild twist, Good Burger. I don't know if you remember Good Burger.
The name is
Keenan
ringing a
and Kel. It
bell.
was like an all that sketch. Do you remember the like you probably
No.
this went
None of
so
these
past
words
you.
mean anything to
Oh my god,
me.
that's so wild.
I'm so
Please
sorry.
somebody out there, you know what I'm talking about. All that was
Send me the
basically
links. I'll watch
it was
it.
basically a kids version. Like in the 90s, it was the kids version of SNL. So like that's where Amanda Bynes got her
Oh,
start.
wild.
Keenan Thompson, who's like the longest running
Whoa.
SNL cast member.
Wow.
Um, it was kind of like
That's
it
so
was a
cool.
big deal. I'm not gonna
Interesting.
sing the theme song. I'm not gonna sing the theme song.
Sing the theme
Um,
song
but no, I will for you later. But I found this interesting. Mac was not the first DP on this set. They
Oh.
had another cinematographer named Bob Evinger, who was hired and actually shot a full week of the film before he was replaced by Mac.
What did
Not
he
to any
do?
fault of his own.
Oh, no.
Stewart talked about how he was great and he was awesome, but because a friend of Brian, the big producer, which we'll talk about, he had a friend called Charlie Band of Empire Pictures at the time who he wasn't a financial backer, but he gave them a lot of like advice because he was in a bigger studio, whatever.
Mhm.
So they kind of took his advice. Charlie suggested hiring Mac because he thought he was going to be a better fit for like the tone of the film and what they were going
Interesting.
for. So he was like, you might want to pull. So I don't know if it's like
Huh.
Charlie found out about it later and was like, I got a guy, you should use him. But they did end up
Interesting.
replacing poor Bob, and I feel really bad because
Oh,
they said he did a good
Bob.
job. Um,
That's
doesn't
so
that kind of suck?
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it
Maybe
makes me
Bob was
wonder if they
chill.
saw something in the footage that they were like, this isn't playing. I could even imagine because like horror comedy is such a
Oh
hard
my god, yeah.
balance to
And
strike
this
if it
Mac guy is like, I don't know. He just doesn't make sense, but also makes so much sense for
interesting. Okay,
I don't
tell me
know.
more. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
So Mac gets brought in to finish the rest of the film. And he said like the second he met Stuart Gordon on set, they only talked for like a half an hour. So he got brought in, they kind of had a chat before he got officially hired.
Wow.
And he talked about how he instantly fell in love with him and that he was so
Oh,
warm and talented. So
I
he was
love
really
that.
excited to be on this project. And Stewart actually credits Mac for being the main reason why he's successful as a director because they really had this cinematographer director
I love
relationship.
that.
Yeah. And even like they got in a lot of fights and stuff like that too, but they said they always came back and Stewart would watch the footage and be like, okay, you were right. And I guess Mac
Mhm.
would walk around on set a lot and be like, like, you can't do this. At one point, he was like, you're crossing the line. You're crossing the line. And Stewart's like looking around him, like, what line am I crossing? And with the camera, he just crossed the line,
The
which
180.
yep. Yeah, 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 which, I don't even know if I wanna, like, explain to people, but, like, if you cross the line, it's just continuity reasons. If you cross the line, it just could throw off
It
eye lines.
it's not the way that most Western films are shot.
Yeah.
And so our brains aren't as used to
Yeah,
processing
yeah, yeah.
things that cross the line. It doesn't, there are so many films, almost every film made now does it at some point.
Do they?
Oh
I always feel like I
yeah.
try and watch out for that, but
Well, and it's also historically, at least, this is me getting really
I was
film
good. That's
nerdy.
why
I'm so
I set
sorry.
you up to explain it. So I was like, if Sienna wants to talk about it, I'm gonna
I
let them, otherwise I'm moving fast.
I mean, like the 180-degree line, basically the concept is like there's like an invisible line between two characters who are having a
Mhm.
conversation. The camera
Stays
typically in
on
Western
one.
film stays on one side of that line so that like basically if you have one character appear in a close up, they're looking to the right and the other character is looking to the
It's, like, so
left.
hard to explain, I'm realizing on a podcast, not, like, like, physically and,
Yeah,
like, showing.
it's
So
hard without visuals,
yeah,
but
so Stewart didn't even know
that's so, but
that
like
rule.
my little angry film nerd tidbit is particularly Japanese films up until like the
Oh.
1940s crossed the 180-degree line all the time, and it was just a
Oh.
very normal thing because that if you're used to watching films that
Oh,
way,
funny.
it's fine. It's literally just it's a norm, and it's like more of a
Mm.
cultural norm than it is like a filmmaking
Oh,
necessity. And people talk
funny.
about it like it's a filmmaking
I
necessity.
I did too. I thought
Yeah.
it was. Well, not
It's
a necessity, I would say it's a choice.
yeah, but
But it seems like a choice that most it's like, "Oh, that's filmmaking
it's
101."
very popularized now, but it's
Mm.
not
Is that a rule?
It's not. It's a rule that's made to be broken, and
Yeah.
it's a rule that like only came to filmmaking in other places later down the line. But
Interesting.
like, it doesn't have to be done that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
But for this purpose,
Yes, yeah.
Stuart was
You're
was not
crossing the line.
It wasn't for this film,
Yeah.
and so he was looking around the ground, and that just shows like how
That's
little
so
information he
funny.
knew because
Wow.
he
It's
knew
his first film,
stage
yeah.
and how to direct and art direct there. But
Wow, the parallels between our movies, because
Are they
obviously
very
mine
similar?
directed by Clive Barker,
Yeah.
who is an incredible
Yeah.
writer, had not directed a film before, but came
Funny.
from the world of stage too.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, some interesting.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so their relationship is really sweet to watch them talk
Oh,
about. And
I
Stuart kind
love
of calls Mac the professor because he
Oh,
kind of just taught him so many
oh,
things on the set. So they
that's
went on
so
to work
cute.
together down the
I
line.
love
And
that so much.
I know it's really, again, it's the two of them just seem like the sweetest little beans I've ever seen. And I have like a little fun side story. So it's very like wild Hollywood interaction that happened. So Mac was actually working on the set a couple years later. So in 1991, he was working on the set of Dream On, the second greatest story ever told, parts 1 and 2.
Whoa, what a title.
Which starred or one of the stars was David Bowie in it.
Oh,
And
interesting.
David Bowie actually found out Mac had worked on Re-Animator
Mhm.
and was so excited. He ran up to Mac on set after finding this out, and he was like, "Did you
I love
actually work on this film?" And Mac's like, "Yeah, like I shot it."
Yeah.
And David fucking Bowie of all fucking people got super excited
That's
and then
so
kind of like expressed and fanboyed out and said that it was his favorite film,
What?
which is
I guess that
I
kind of.
need a log of David Bowie's favorite films.
Oh my god! Imagine if David Bowie had a letterbox.
So, who is the knowledge? An
Oh,
assistant?
God, I would.
But yeah, so
That's incredible.
it just makes it all the more cute that he would. I
Well, and it also
can't even imagine.
It does feel again. It kind of just sort of makes sense on a level to me because
Well,
it's
Bowie's so weird and like
yeah, and also like
he's a
queer, and this movie is so queer and
So
like
gay.
yeah, it's so gay.
Yeah, it's something that I feel like I didn't. I feel like I acknowledged it the first watch, but then I really
Did it really come out?
Yeah,
at you the
literally.
second one
Came out right in front of me, right out of that closet.
Yep.
So we have. I feel like you can't talk about this film without talking about the music in it, specifically that theme. So we have composer Richard Band, which
Mhm.
as a composer to have the name
What
Band
a
is
name.
again set up for success here. So he scored so many B horror movies. Most notably, he did all the Puppet Master movies. It seems like
Oh.
Bride of Re-Animator, which is the follow up
Cool.
to this one. Prehysteria, which I've been wanting to rewatch. It's like a weird 90s
Interesting.
dinosaur movie where they like live in this like kids' home.
Amazing.
I don't know. He also did Castle Freak. And then my favorite title of all the films that he scored, I feel like you'll very much appreciate this. Evil Bong 3, The Wrath of Bong.
Oh my god.
Which one day we have to just
420.
pick. Yeah. We
Year.
kind of just have to pick films that make like no, like we're just based on title and vibes, and we don't know anything about them, and we just have to pick a pair.
That's incredible. The
yeah.
Wrath of Bong. Is that like a
Star
Wrath
Trek?
of Khan?
Yeah.
Incredible.
So
Incredible.
yeah, this man's kind of done everything, and obviously, I was surprised. I mean, sometimes even if I haven't seen a film, I know things about it. And Re-Animator's so big, you would think I would know what the score sounded like because it sounds exactly like Psycho, but I didn't. And my first time watching it, I was like, what the fuck?
There are pieces that are the Psycho score, right?
I mean,
like it's
I like to think so. That it sounds literally exactly like it.
Is it not? I thought they literally just took it directly.
So they did not take it directly. So
What? How have they not been sued for this?
I don't know.
That's
He did get a lot of slack from it.
It's like the same melody.
Yeah. So Stuart Gordon, I know it's
I'm losing.
I don't know how you don't get sued about from it. I don't
Wild.
know.
I mean, I guess
I guess
it's
it's like a remix that someone else
1960.
is doing
Also,
it.
it's like a time before copyright law was like
A
codified
thing.
as intensely as it is
Still,
now.
you
But
would
like,
think that a state would
still,
come for it
for something
now.
as popular as the Psycho score, you would think
The
that like the Bernard Herrmann, because he was still alive at this point, I'm pretty sure. You'd think he would come
well,
after them.
poor what's his name? Richard. Poor Richard did like get so much hate, but Stuart Gordon really, really, really wanted to have a score that was an homage to Bernard Herrmann.
I
And
mean,
so
imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I
they did, I
guess.
know, and that's what they said, and I kind of, it's kind of sad watching them talk about it because he's like, I
Oh, no.
really wanted it to be an homage. I didn't want people to think I'm like ripping it off and making a shittier
Oh,
version.
honey.
So they like felt
Oh,
bad, which
no.
I think goes to show like the intent was in the right place. I
Yeah.
think they could have stood their ground and been like,
Yeah.
no, it's not, like, I don't know. Film bros, I feel like could really brush it off. So I felt really bad. And on top of that, Richard also went over schedule by 2 days creating the score.
Oh.
And so he was this is so funny. I went to Rome and it auto-corrected to Romero, and then it makes me think of Winnie Romero.
Oh my god.
But he went over schedule, and therefore he went over budget by 1,500, and he ended up just putting his own money to finish it because he like really
Oh,
believed in it. He's like, sorry guys. So
that's
he
so
paid his own money out of
sweet.
pocket to finish the score.
Aw.
Yeah, a lot of love went
Yeah.
in, but
It,
wild.
I feel so bad now for making fun of it, but like it
Yeah.
sounds exactly the
I think
same.
there was a way that they could have done it where it didn't sound literally
Exactly
like they
the same.
sampled it.
Yeah.
It sounded like a
It
sample.
sounded like a sample. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And that's what I'm thinking how they got away from it. Because if you do like covers or remixes, like
Right.
you don't get copywritten from them nowadays. So
Nowadays, like I've
such a
been thinking
weird.
about this a lot because I'm looking for music for my film right now, right? And
Ooh,
there
yeah,
are
it's
two
tough.
kinds of, if you're not doing a completely original soundtrack, there are
Mhm.
two kinds of licensing rights. There's
Yeah.
the rights to the composition itself, and
Mm,
then there's the rights to the specific recording of the song. And if
mm.
you want like the Bernard Herrmann version of the Psycho soundtrack, you have to pay for both. If you just want to remix it or cover it, you still have to pay for the rights to the composition, but you don't have to
Interesting.
pay for the rights to that recording.
That makes sense.
So
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
that's weird little audio tidbit. by the
Yeah,
way.
I'm
Yeah.
curious to I want to look into it because again, I don't know how they got away with it either.
That's so wild. This is
Yeah.
blowing my mind out.
Yeah. So homage, we love
Yeah.
Richard. We also paired with that have the title sequence, which is so fucking good. They're done by Bob Dawson.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, so he is a fucking icon, I've learned, in Hollywood and has worked on over 140 films. I don't
Wow.
know if that's like an updated number. I don't
That's
know if he's still alive.
huge.
But some of the films he worked on, so did title sequence for, that's
Mhm.
like his
It's his-
thing.
yeah.
Beetlejuice,
Oh my
Batman
God, amazing.
Returns, Mars Attacks, Fifth Element, X-Men, and Repo Man, which I
We're
think by the time
playing at
this
the
comes out,
theater.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we already played it
Did we?
potentially. But we're starting to play those at Punk Rock
Yes.
Wednesdays.
Yeah,
So
we will have already
um
played it.
yeah, but the
Unfortunately.
Repo Man ones and Re-Animator
That's so
definitely look hand in
satisfying.
hand. So
Mhm.
I just thought that was cool because we never really talk about title sequences. He also does some like end credit stuff in different films. So wanted to
Interesting.
give him a shout.
I love a good title sequence. It's like an
Right?
underrated art.
I feel like we don't do it as much anymore.
We don't.
And it
Well,
really bums me out. This was fun watching these old horror films.
I love a film with
Sets you up.
opening credits.
Right?
I love an opening
We
credit.
have a lot of opening credits that we've had on the
Mhm.
podcast too. Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
about it that just feels like
It
it's a
feels
lost art.
cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a shout and then we'll talk about them later, is the special effects makeup team. So we have John Nolan. And it makes me feel like
Oh.
I'm saying New Orleans. Nolans? John Nolans. Shut up, everybody.
No.
He's best known for his character and creature effects on this film, obviously. From Beyond, Jack's Back, which I have no idea what the fuck that is, The River Wild, and The Last Action Hero. And he kind of had like, these guys had like wild careers. He also provided second unit special effects on film and TV projects like Team America,
Mm.
Biodome, also Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and some Star
Oh.
Trek and Star Wars
Cool.
films. So yeah, pretty robust career. And then he was one of the guys that helped create elements for motion capture.
Whoa. Oh,
Isn't
that's
that
so
weird? And I'm like, I
cool.
don't even know how many people worked on that.
Wow.
But yeah, elastomer, he worked with, I don't know, elastomer formulas and then other technologies. So he kind of has
That's
this
so
like
cool.
yeah. So I normally
Wow.
when we talk about special effects makeup, we don't really have like there's obviously a lot of tech involved,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that he kind of had
He
a
sort of
play it.
bridged both. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
so he's a cool
I
dude.
love that.
And then another shout to Anthony Dublin. He worked as a lighting technician on 58 episodes of Robot Chicken. And then
Good.
the Marcel the Shell movie that came
Oh,
out too, so he worked on that.
amazing.
And then he did the 88 version of The Blob. He
Cool.
also did visual effects photography for Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. It's a movie
Oh.
from 1990, and then a digital compositor for
Mhm.
Scary Movie.
Oh,
So again,
cool.
these two guys had like
Nice.
they didn't just
Skills in both. Yeah,
yeah, a little bit all over the
that's
place.
really
That's why I thought it was
cool.
very interesting to see their careers. So I would yeah, looking up their IMDb and their kind of
Interesting.
trivia was interesting. I wanted to go in more, but again, 11 pages of notes.
Yeah, fair.
So getting into who this is starring, I just have a couple people on here. So we have Jeffrey Combs as Herbert, who I
Mm-hmm.
love.
He's so
I
gay.
know he's such a little.
I wrote down, I was like,
What do you
is
write?
this the original Evil Twink? Like,
No.
it's, and I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. He's
yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
yeah. Big, yeah,
Yep.
big evil twink
Yeah.
energy.
Hmm.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of what would be like I said last night, like a Buffy the Vampire villain, a little
Yeah.
bit. You know
Yeah.
what I
He has that
mean?
kind of an energy
Yeah,
to him.
he's terrifyingly good in this role.
He's perfectly
Yeah,
cast.
his eyes give evil
Yeah.
from like the core, you know? I'm like,
Yeah.
again, part of me, I'm like, where did you pull that from?
He's good at having this sort of like almost reptilian quality,
Ooh,
you
yes,
know?
yes, yes. Yeah, we got a finger point from Trav.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I couldn't like nail what it is about him that feels
It
very
feels very,
reptilian.
yeah, very like cold-blooded.
Ew.
Yeah.
Talking about their bodies makes sense.
Well,
Yeah, he kind of his career is a little bit all over the place too. He is in the 1999 version of House on Haunted Hill.
oh,
And then
cool.
in 2007's Return to House on Haunted Hill. I have not seen either. I've only seen
Oh,
the original. And he's in an episode of 2003's The Twilight Zone. And then he also reprises his role in Bride of Re-Animator. So
nice.
he's kind of
Cool.
our little horror dude.
Good, good, good.
Herbert Russ was one of Jeffrey's like first lead roles in his career. And it was oh, I just said I was like, what's this note that I wrote? I just love that this is like a first time lead, first time director
That's
duo. It's
cute.
kind of
That's
fun.
cute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he says he's kind of been typecast since this.
I can imagine. This feels like one
Yeah,
of those roles where you do it so well that like it's gonna be hard to escape.
he eats up this role.
Yeah.
I would say he's like him and the fucking Dr. Hill
Oh yeah.
are
The
really
two
the
of them
standout
are
performances.
they're what makes the
Yeah,
movie.
as my eye
Yeah.
like twitches at you, I'm so
Good.
sorry. He said in that behind the scenes doc that when he read the script, he quote couldn't believe how audacious it was, and even after it came out, he remembers being so shocked by how truly gross it was. So I kind of
Wow.
love
That's
the
satisfying.
response,
Yeah.
which a lot of the cast had that on set and after. I
Oh
think
wow.
with Stewart's vision, and again, Stewart just seems so like he seems like everyone's like fun, sweet uncle, and the fact
Oh.
that he's like so sick.
That feels very like David Cronenberg energy.
Yeah, yeah,
Where like
yeah. There's a
everybody
lot
who's
of those.
talked to him is
Yeah.
like he's such a sweet.
Unassuming.
Yeah.
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 That you don't know where it comes from. I love
Depths.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Bruce Abbott as Dan. He is also kind of in some random things I'm not familiar with, but he also makes appearance later in Bride of Re-Animator. Then we have Scream Queen, Barbara Crampton as Megan, aka Meg.
Mm-hmm.
You might recognize her if you watch the podcast or listen to the podcast. She's in Your Next. She's the mom.
Oh my god, I was wondering why she looked
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah, because she looks. I mean, she looks pretty
Yeah.
much the same, but wildly different characters that you wouldn't
Wow.
recognize her just from acting
Yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
fascinating.
know,
Oh,
yeah. And I didn't like Your Next was the first thing I've ever seen her in, so it's so fun to then
yeah.
now go back and see her, and she's so good in this?
Wait, I haven't fact checked this,
Oh god.
but I had dinner last night with Mark Garrett, friend of the
Yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
And he was asking what we were doing next, and I said, "Oh, tomorrow we're recording on Re-Animator."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, did you know that the lead actress was a porn star?"
That makes sense
So
what I'm
I
about to
don't
say.
know
Well, I
for
don't
sure,
know.
but it would make sense,
I don't know.
particularly given that she does full frontal nudity in
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. That would I didn't go into that. I do have some quotes about her doing this because again, like she's I mean
She's
so
perfect. She's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing.
But also
Yeah.
to do I think do being a more B horror film and
Mm-hmm.
completely be stripped down and
Yeah.
so vulnerable on screen. It's not like it was
Yeah.
these like artistic shots. It really was just like
Right.
her out there for
Yeah.
everyone to
Well,
see.
and there's a lot of shots where like you don't see her face, it's just her
Mm-hmm,
body and the
mm-hmm.
camera's like literally cut off her head, which
Yeah, I
is
don't know if porn star. I don't have that in here, I don't think, but I do have quotes on
interesting.
her.
So
So
anyway, not sure if that's
yeah.
true. Maybe Travis, do you have a chance to fact check that?
Yeah, you can fact
Not seeing anything? Okay.
yeah,
Would be interesting if so, but
yeah,
just wanna
not that I have read. So, just to give
interesting.
shouts of other things she's been in, she was in Rob Zombie's
Oh, cool.
Lords of Salem, so I guess I have seen her before. She also cameos in Puppet Master. She's in an episode of the 2021 Creep Show, which just started watching on road trips.
Oh.
It really good. People give it a lot of shit, but it's really good. She also voiced a character named Virginia in the 2023 video game Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Aw.
So she's our little scream queen. We love her.
Yeah, does all of the horror stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's sick.
And we almost didn't get her in this. So she only got brought back in the audition process in the second round because there was a different girl that got the part of Meg and ended up turning it down because the
Oh.
girl's mother had read the script and was like, absolutely not, you are not doing this. And so after she got cast, she got pulled out.
Oh,
Barbara got
wow.
brought back in for another audition process and then nailed the role
She's
and got it.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of those instances of like just
The
moving on and be like, okay, not for me, and then just
the
look at her
universe,
career she's had
yeah.
since this.
The universe made it happen
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
it
yeah.
needed to.
Also,
Yeah.
like I get not getting the script, but like the sides that you read in the audition
You
couldn't have been that
have to
PG.
know. There's no conversation that this character has that's PG,
Yeah,
pretty much.
right?
Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
could you possibly have given her to read?
I do think it got the script with Stuart Gordon and kind of the evolution of this. I do think it did get more raunchy
That's
as
fair.
time went on. But
As
still,
it should.
it's a horror movie. I'm sure
Yeah.
the bones of what it was were there. So we got her back in, and she, again, talking about the nude scenes and stuff. I do
Mhm.
have some quotes from her
Oh,
about
cool.
them. So she kind of like understands why people would kind of poke and prod at these
Right.
things because again, it's she's shot in a way that I don't think
Mhm.
we see, like female presenting people shot a lot, which is really just like it's out there. It's
Yeah,
just it's bodies. They're just
yeah.
bodies.
Yeah. Like, again, it's the camera literally cuts her body into pieces in a way that
Yeah.
feels a lot like what Herbert West is doing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I kind of I appreciate the body neutrality in this in a
yeah,
way.
it doesn't
Sorry,
like,
my
it
chapstick all
feels
over.
like Dr. Hill is being so much creepier to her than the camera is being. You
100%.
know?
Yeah.
Like, it
Um,
doesn't really feel to me like it's leering at her
I don't
in the
think
way
so
he
at
is.
all.
Yeah.
At all. Like it just kind of makes you want to murder him.
Yeah, 100%.
So she kind of understands the reaction, but she does stick up for herself and defend
Oh,
herself. So
good.
in a 2014 interview, she says, quote, anything I did was always part of the film and part of the story. I don't think that anything I ever did felt like I shouldn't be doing this or I'm scared to do it or what would hurt my career if I did it.
I
There are a
love to
lot
hear
of
that.
people, yeah, there are a lot of people who are movie viewers who have very varying degrees on what they think and how I should feel about sexuality and nudity.
Mm.
There's a lot of social and moral issues involved in people's minds and their upbringing. But for me as an actor, if it's part of the story, I'll do it and I'll probably continue to do it. I don't know if anybody's going to see a wrinkled old grandmother, Barbara Crampton, but if it's in the story, I'll do it.
I fucking love that.
Yeah.
What a baddie.
Yeah, I love that she was like, okay, like
Ugh.
that's fine if you're
I
offended
f-
by this, but like it calls for it, so that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's too, we've talked about like actors taking roles and kind of how they feel about it, but she really just looks at it like that's part of the
That's
story and I'm okay.
amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then again in a 2017 interview, she was asked again if she regrets being nude, to which she said, "Oh no, why would I? I knew that I was what I was getting into, and I did a lot of that stuff. And when I did a lot of that stuff, I did, and thank God. Speaking in particular about Re-Animator, that I was in a movie." This is a weird quote. I was in that movie and really pushed the boundaries in many ways, but also had a great foundation in wonderful storytelling and good characters, something that has lived on and become a fan favorite and cult classic. So I think she's just
Aw,
appreciative of being in
I
it.
love that.
Yeah, and
That's
I love
really satisfying to hear when an actor, it like
stands by.
how different than the Blair Witch Project, like that she decades
Wild,
later is
yeah.
just like, I feel so good about this,
Yeah.
and about how I was treated, about what my
Yeah.
experience was,
Yeah,
about
it's
how it's been received.
refreshing.
Yes,
Especially because, yeah, with that, as much time that can pass between to hear these
Yeah.
interviews, like you said, later after she's gone on, she's done other things, she still
That's
feels
really
good, and
cool.
it's like it's a classic, and it's
Yeah,
awesome, and it's
yeah,
captured,
and
and
is important to people, and I'm proud
yeah,
of that. That's
yeah.
really cool.
So everyone can feel good about it, except
Aww.
for what's his name's wife.
Yeah, which
Is not a fan. Some little extras I have in here. Tom Towles was originally set to play the first reanimated corpse before Peter Kent got the part. Tom Towles is, or Towles, Towles. He's kind of like that guy in horror. He always plays this like beefy villain. He is most
Oh.
notably in Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects.
Oh, cool.
And then Peter Kent, if you recognize that name, he was Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double in
Oh
over
my God.
14 of his films, including Terminator
Wow.
and Jingle All the Way. They're the two that I wrote down.
Incredible. The important ones.
I mean,
the
obviously.
masterpieces.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest. My introduction to Arnold Schwarzenegger
Oh.
was Jingle All the Way.
Me too.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
That's wild. You don't know all that, but you know Jingle All the Way.
Yep, correct.
I
Yep.
just love hearing these nuggets of
Yep.
information about you.
Yep.
And just like a little fun fact, in June of 2009, Peter was actually inducted into the Hollywood Stuntman Hall of Fame for all the work that he did.
love
So give
that.
him a little shout. Again, some of my things are so random. There is, I read this and I shriek laughed.
Oh my God.
There is a woman that Dan is seen like attempting to resuscitate at the beginning of the film, and she was known as a quote dildo enthusiast because she would hide dildos around the set and like under the fake corpses and in the morgue scenes, and so like cast and crew would just find these dildos, which I'm like, did she come to set with like a pack of dildos?
Where
every
was
day?
she hiding them? Did she just
In
like
corpses, under corpses?
I'm picturing like a watch salesman style trench coat where she opens
Oh my gosh,
the arms
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
not
just
even a bag.
dildos.
Yeah, which one? And this goes here. But I'm just like, what? You
What an-
know, creating little joys in life, I think, is a very important thing to
I
do.
need to do that on my next set.
Dildos?
Yeah, nobody's gonna know where they're coming from, and people will just
Until later, you're quoted
Yeah.
as being a quote
Mhm.
dildo enthusiast
Yep,
on
perfect.
set. Yeah, so
Great.
I don't know her name, but
That's
Yep.
what a legacy.
yeah.
Ugh,
And
new merch idea.
Yeah,
Just
just someone opening dildo enthusiast. It's just a trench coat. Or a little like pockets, a little pocket, and you pull
Oh,
it down, and it's just there's little
no!
dildos.
No.
We haven't had a merch idea in a really long time.
That's a good
We
one.
have two in this
it's
episode.
a terrible one.
But yeah, speaking of icons, this is a
Yep.
wild leap.
my God.
So the role of Dr. Carl Hill
Uh-huh.
was written for a different actor. Wild. I don't know what his career was like at this time, but I can't imagine it was in a place where he'd ever take this role. But Christopher Lee, who was Saruman in Lord of the Rings,
Girl, what?
yeah,
Like,
he obviously turned down the role. But
shocking.
it was like written for him to play.
like
Which that would be fucking sick, to be fair.
it would
To
be
look back and be
amazing,
like,
but,
Saruman?
Sir Christopher Lee,
Yeah.
like knighted.
Is he knighted?
I'm pretty sure he's a knight, right?
Oh,
yeah,
damn.
yeah. That's
Oh.
yeah.
Well, I didn't write Sir in my notes. He's just plain
but
old
he
Christopher
is a sir,
Lee.
is he not? Yeah. Okay, great. Love that.
Yeah. So wild.
My God.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
I-
I love shit like that though, where you see like these big actors that we know from these huge franchises or projects or whatever, and like looking back and being like, they were in that.
Yeah. That would be so satisfying.
Stephen Colbert was in one of my film teachers. I think I've mentioned it on here before. He was in one of my film teachers' sci-fi horror films.
You did mention
Yeah, like a
this.
black
I
and white.
desperately need to watch
I know. I
this.
don't remember that fucking teacher's
Oh my
name, but I would
God.
love to track down a copy of that. He
But-
was a babe. I don't think he had his glasses at the time either. His iconic glasses.
But imagine a universe where Saruman and the dildo enthusiast were on
the
same
same set
together.
Yeah.
God.
Truly the best
The
set ever.
world has cheated us.
In another timeline,
Yeah.
another universe that happened. Oh my God, these notes. I don't know how I'm going to get through everything. So,
God, Al, I'm
script,
so
I'm going to have to
sorry.
breeze through. So, script, we're finally getting to how this film was fucking made. So, we talked about it earlier that it was loosely based on H.P. Lovecraft.
The speed at which you started talking.
Everyone put me in real time at
I'm
point,
so sorry.
like double the speed. So, we didn't talk about the idea of the
Mhm.
film, but at the time it was actually set to be not a film but a stage play
That
originally,
kinda
which
makes sense.
makes
Yeah.
sense. So it was a discussion that director Stewart and his friends had about one night about kind of like how vampire films, talking about vampire films, and Stewart was talking about how there were too many Dracula films being made, which I'm like, okay. Once again, I'm like, we're there.
We're
That's fine.
there.
I feel like we
Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula hadn't even come out yet.
I know.
What are
I'm
we
like, what are we
talking
talking about? So he had more of a desire to see a Frankenstein-like film. So that's where I told you to put a
That
pin in
makes sense.
earlier.
Yep. Mhm.
And so a friend actually asked him, have you ever read Herbert West's Re-Animator by H.P. Lovecraft? And he was like, I've read a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. I have not read that. I have to go on a hunt. So he went to the Chicago Public Library to hunt down some copies because he couldn't find prints of it. There weren't prints of it
Wow.
anywhere. So he had to go to the library, old school.
Aw.
And he read that story and like 6 others of his stories from the 30s. And of course he was like, absolutely, I need to do this. And he said, quote, in reading these stories, I was blown away. They're fantastic, and I could see the potential as a film because they're so packed with action. I mean, jam-packed with incredibly shocking and often very gory proceedings. So that sets the tone of where
He
this
ain't
ended up
wrong.
going. And so I said, because the story was originally a serial, so they wanted to do a stage play. Then they were thinking like kind of film because that's obviously what he wanted to do with his actors at the theater.
Mhm.
But Stewart and the writers Dennis and William naturally thought, because it's a serial, let's make it a 6-episode, half-an-hour television series. So they thought that would make like the most sense, and then they thought they would pitch it to PBS.
Oh my
Which,
fucking
like,
God.
PBS is so fucking wholesome, and I feel like it always has,
Yeah.
or like informative or whatever. And I guess it's historical too, but I'm like, the gore. So the original
The
story,
tits?
there's
The dildos?
the dildos. So the original story was set to be around the turn of the century, but then they kind of realized how expensive that was going to be to recreate. So they're like, okay, not going to do that anymore.
Mhm.
Stewart and Dennis then, they had originally intended for it to be really faithful to Lovecraft's story, but they realized like how things weren't going to work, and they kind of wanted to have this parody of a Frankenstein film. So he kind of brought it up to friends to gauge their interaction. And then, like, after they pitched this to PBS, they were like, absolutely fucking not. This is too gruesome. You need to move on. So they ended up shopping it around a few more places, and they still ended up moving forward with the TV series script, but they were being told that it wasn't sellable being so short like that. So they ended up, instead of doing this 6 half-an-hour episodes, they were like, aha, 13-hour-long episodes instead.
Which is funny because now that kind of mini-series format would be perfect.
Isn't
to
it
sell.
weird how we've
Yeah.
kind of gone from, we went through a period of like, there were like 30 episodes, and so it's kind of I think it's a weird option for them to make it longer.
Yeah, for that to be
It seems
solution.
backwards. Yeah, I had to read it a couple times to be like, is that the way they went? So yeah.
You decided 13 hours instead of 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the original writer during this time, like I said, it was William. He said he was super frustrated with this process because of all the fucking changes they went through.
Yeah.
And so that's when he ended up handing it, like I said, to Dennis, who came on And so he worked with Dennis on the hour long. So after they pitched the 13-hour long things, William was like, I'm fucking out. Give it to this guy. So they kind of kept going through, kept working on it, ultimately decided to take it to present day Chicago because Stuart was like, oh, we'll just use like my theater and the actors and that's what we'll set it. So that was kind of their plan. So they started to move forward on that. And so they were working together and then they ended up chatting with one of their friends who is a special effects tech named Bob Greenberg, who at the time had worked on John Carpenter's Dark Star. And so
Oh.
he kept telling Stuart, like, the only market for horror right now is film, so, like, you
Mhm.
shouldn't do episodes, scrap
Do a
that. Yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah, and then he introduced him, which is, like, the start of this beautiful relationship. The special effects person, Bob, introduced them to Brian Yuzna.
The
Brian Yuzna, yeah,
producer.
the producer. So you'll see in the credits, like, he's credited all up and down this place.
Cool.
Seems kind of looks like a pretentious film bro, but really seemed passionate about this project. So
Sometimes pretentious film bros get the job done.
yeah, we'll let it slide. So Brian at the time was obviously already a fan of H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator, um, and was kind of in this weird space where he was looking to make a low budget horror film anyway.
Mhm.
So he's like, perfect. This lines
Mhm.
up with everything I
Great.
want to do. So we got together with Stuart got together with Brian. They kind of, you know, were convinced to make this into a feature film at the time. And then Brian was like, we're not going to shoot it in Chicago. We have
Mhm.
to go to Hollywood to do this because there's so many special effects that you want to do in this. And we just won't have the people we need
The
here. So, like, let's go to
resources. Yeah.
Hollywood and then let's incorporate some more gore if we're going out there. So, also, noted, apparently the theater was horrified by the subject matter along with PBS. And so they were like,
Amazing.
we probably wouldn't have done this anyway. So, like, good on you. And
That's incredible.
yeah. And so to those reactions,
Mhm.
Dennis, the writer, said, quote, HP Lovecraft.
There's a
Every
shirt.
fucking
Yeah.
thing. I'm trying to go so fast. H.P. Lovecraft pushes the genre in literary terms, so we were going to have to push the genre in filmic terms. So that
I
kind of
like
sets you
that.
up for the kind of whole mission of this was just
Mhm.
it's a little
Push the
the little
boundaries.
meme
Yeah.
of Kylo Ren, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren just screaming more.
Yep.
I feel like that's what this
Yep.
project was.
Mhm.
And
Honestly,
so
same with mine.
is it really?
Yeah,
Oh
very
man.
so much
Yeah,
in
these are
common.
insane
Yep.
pairings. And so they set off with this kind of directive with this creation of Re-Animator for the big screen. And producer Brian said, quote, I wanted to make it gory and sexy enough, and I didn't want to skimp on that. And so they didn't hold back on anything.
I'm sorry, but hearing that, all I can picture is the bit from Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Rickety Cricket is like playing the bucket
Rickety.
drum.
Oh God.
He's like, I gotta make it sexy, everybody.
Oh God.
If you don't watch Always Sunny in
I
Philadelphia, this is
don't.
gonna make absolutely no sense, and I know you don't, and I reference it
I
all
just
the time, and I can't
I
stop
just pictured
myself.
Jiminy Cricket
Perfect. That's yeah.
when he got fired from Disney and he had to
Yeah.
go out and
Pretty
make his own living.
That's kind of the character, honestly.
So funny.
Anyway, continue.
So where was I? Oh, Brian, so they had and I feel like we've said this before, they kind of spent weekends together watching a bunch of horror films to kind of get the
Mhm.
tone of everything.
Mm.
And then we finally so they kind of made it work. Brian then made distribution deal with Charlie Band's Empire Pictures, like I
Cool.
mentioned, in return for post-production services. And so that's kind of like the beginning of how Re-Animator kind of really set off into Hollywood. So it went from this little idea from this like theater art director to being a like Hollywood movie.
That's
Yeah, and so they started all their pre-production work with talking to special effects teams. That's kind of where it all
love
started.
that.
So moving into budget, I saved it, kind of pushed it in the back. I will have
Oh
you
God,
take
this
a
feels
guess.
real low budget.
It's pretty low. It's not as low as I don't know, maybe it's kind of on par to what it would be.
I
85.
feel like this is probably right around what mine was.
Mm.
1 mil.
Spoiler.
1 mil.
Oh my god, yeah, it was 900 ish. So
Ours cost the exact same amount
no,
of money.
that's never happened.
That's wild. Oh, look at
weird.
that.
They are 2 years apart too, so that's kind
Yeah.
of crazy.
That makes
Holy
sense.
shit, yours
Well,
probably.
and to be fair, mine is
So
in.
here's what you
I'm
made.
guessing the budget was probably in pounds because mine was British, but which we'll talk about that in
Oh,
a sec. But
that's
anyway,
wild.
yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering where they did that one. That's kind of crazy.
It's spoiler alert, they shot it in England and then overdubbed it to get rid of the British accents with American voices, which I've never heard of a film doing
No.
before. It's bizarre.
That's a waste of money
It
and time,
is.
but that's
It's
fine.
a terrible idea.
How can I go on with the British accent?
Yeah, like
Take it away. It's too horrifying.
right, like as if
I
Americans
can't
had never heard that,
understand.
but didn't even do it with every
We like
character. Did
it
it with like
better.
about half of them.
I would have loved a
It would have been
British.
much better
Oh
that
my
way.
god, someone needs to do a
Yeah.
spoof of Hellraiser where it's
Yeah.
redub it. Somebody
Yeah.
redub.
Undub it.
Undub it. That's so
Release
crazy.
the undubbed Hellraiser
Yeah. Oh my
2025.
God. That's so crazy that it's the same. But
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about yours.
Ugh, anyway, love that. Very
But
satisfying.
yeah, same amount. And it was producer Brian, actually, he fronted most of the money and then he got like friends to back
Mhm.
it, and he was like, I promise I'll give you your money back, just please help us
Yeah.
out. So because they kind of did it on their own, they didn't do it through a studio.
Mhm.
They said they really enjoyed that's like all the freedom they had to kind of go back and forth to push the boundaries more and kind of
Mhm.
create the thing that
Do
they
the
wanted.
weird shit.
Yeah,
do the gross
weird
shit.
Yeah,
Do the
so,
porny shit. Yeah.
they definitely made their money back, but just barely. They made almost 544,000 during the opening weekend. I think
Not bad.
for like an unknown director,
Yeah.
there's no really big name tied to this
Yeah.
at the time. They made over 2 million in North America alone.
Nice.
So they got their thing, and now it's such a cult classic. So it's
Yeah.
just like it's definitely made its share of money back now. So like I said, pre-production, they ended up talking to special effects people first, which I think is obviously a great place to start. That is the film.
Yeah.
And then
Priorities on point.
yeah, for sure. So they did a bunch of research and stuff with them, and lookbooks. They kind of came with storyboards, all that kind of good
Mhm.
stuff, which we'll get into. But production, they shot for only 18 days.
That's like me.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
wild.
I know. I love reading the timeline on stuff because I always think of like you and what
Yeah.
you did. So 16 days were principal filming days and 2 days were reshoots.
That's like me.
I know. Is that cute? Yeah. So same days.
I feel so seen.
Twinsies. So they shot both on location in
Mhm.
LA and then at a studio, which they said something different in the making of, but Occidental Studios,
Oh,
which apparently
interesting.
said was so fucking run down that there were like holes in the floor and things were falling apart and the dressing rooms were really gross. So they were like, you could tell we worked on a low budget
Yep.
film. Like we had to do what we had to do. But hey, they had studio space. So
Got it done.
yeah, so I have a couple locations, but I'm not really gonna go into those. Yeah, so we obviously know like the initial intent of this, which is and then shooting date. The
Mhm.
wild ride they went on to get where they were. So, I feel like this film very much is associated with this like very gory B horror colors,
Mhm.
and obviously that like
Mhm.
neon green, which I don't have
Yeah.
tidbits on that. Sorry, it's so
It's
beautiful to look at.
Iconic.
Um,
Clearly, like I'm sure Coralie Farjat has like talked about that being inspiration for the substance, right?
I don't know.
I feel like she would have had to.
Yeah,
Like it's
I mean,
such
Re-Animator's a pretty like a
Yeah.
lot of people reference. I think.
people know it.
Yeah. So we have all these like luscious colors and this gore and whatever. But Stewart initially wanted to shoot the movie in black and white on a 16 millimeter film to kind of give it
Wow.
this like gritty old school quality.
Very Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
That makes sense.
But can you imagine
I'm so
what?
glad that they didn't.
Oh my God, me
Like
too.
I love a black and white film. This needed to be in color.
Absolutely. I think with all the gore that they wanted to do with
Yeah.
it,
Black
it
and
would have
white
been a
gore
different film.
is very different. Like I
Yeah.
love black and white gore.
See,
It's
yeah, same.
different.
Yeah,
It's
very
different.
different.
Yeah.
But I thought that was wild with all the changes. They also
Yeah.
wanted to do that. I did bring in what they ended up using for you.
Uh-huh.
So they ended up going with I don't know any of the everyone. I do not know any of the words I'm about to say.
I love this.
They
Buckle
went
up.
with ultravision cameras
Uh-huh.
and lenses from the Deluxe Laboratory in Hollywood.
Cool.
And the second part, I obviously know. They ended up shooting on 35 millimeter
Mhm.
format and then color. But I just think what like a contrast. The script and the
My
story and
God.
being turned like, can you imagine it was like turn of
Oh,
the
it would feel
century
so
film
different.
in 16 mil
Yeah.
versus now we're in like fucking Hollywood with color.
bright gore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has
Oh,
been a ride for them.
man.
And obviously we can't talk about all the color without all the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So they reportedly used about 24 gallons of fake blood on this shoot, which I actually thought was, they talk about it like it's a lot. I don't
It's
feel like it is.
compared to something, I mean, the problem is we've talked about things like Brain Dead, Dead
I
Alive,
know, and
which
like,
use
yeah,
like
yeah.
hundreds
And
of
Evil Dead
gallons.
too, I feel
Yeah.
like too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess in like
Our-
my mind, yeah,
we're a little
jaded
bit skewed. Yeah.
And makeup effects artist John, who we talked about earlier, said that Re-Animator was actually his bloodiest film that he ever worked on. So it's very much in
Wow.
his brain.
Love.
He also said on all the other films he had worked on, he never had to use more than 2 gallons of blood. So that's kind of his reference for this. To get kind of the look that we get of these dead bodies, they used a book of forensics pathology in order to kind of present how the corpses look. So we see a lot of that like purple staining.
Oh,
I do feel like they put a lot of attention if you
It
pay attention
really
to.
felt like those corpses. Well, and I saw in, I don't always watch the closing credits, but I watched all the way through the credits, and they included a special thanks to a morgue.
Yes.
So
not only did they not only did
Sorry
they
to-
have lookbooks and photos. No, you teed me up
Oh, good.
perfectly. They Stuart went and Brian went, but they also took the
Did they
cast.
take field trips?
I wrote field trips.
Oh my
They
God!
took field trips. They took field trips to the Cook County morgue, which Cook County
Oh my
is
God,
like,
I love that.
yeah. And they would look around at bodies and watching the cast like in the behind the scenes react to seeing it.
Oh my God.
One of the actors was like, you look at a dead body and it's like, it like doesn't give you anything. There's no sort of like energy or
Oh
thing. And
my
like, yeah, because they're dead.
They're dead. Yeah.
You're not gonna get a vibe from
It
them.
feels a lot like looking at a waxwork.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's
I've only
ju-
seen a dead
yeah.
body once. We've talked about the dead,
Oh,
our
yeah,
dead
yeah,
bodies.
we've gone through this.
We don't want to go back there right now. But yeah, so they took little field trips
So fun.
to the morgue to get inspiration of like what the textures and the colors and
Oh, yeah, all of that like mottled purple was very like, oh, they've spent some time.
Yeah. And the actors also did something hilarious to me too. So not only did they take field trips to go see real dead bodies in a morgue,
Amazing.
but they actually all worked out together at the YMCA to kind of coordinate like movements as zombies. And I'm just like, can you imagine being at your local YMCA and there's like 10 guys?
There's like
just
a
be
zombie movement group. I love that.
Like, what yoga class is this? Can I join?
Yeah, truly. I'll have what they're having.
Dead body reanimation, please.
Reagent, please.
Yeah. Shoot me out, baby.
Mm.
And
Give me that substance.
Yeah. And speaking of dead bodies, this one's a little sad. I'm so sorry. Trigger warning. In a little bit of a art imitating life. So we have the black cat that we see. The one on his back was like a little puppet that he would like flail around, which is so fucking funny. But they
You could so tell that the actor was moving it.
Oh yeah. But they did have a real dead cat for the freezer scenes. Yeah. I'm assuming
Died
they
a
didn't
natural
kill
death,
it for
right?
that. Yeah.
It did say at the end, like, no animals were harmed for the making of this movie. So if we
animal
did-
pre-harm in some way. Or peaceful death. We don't know.
Pre-harm.
My bad. It could have gotten run over
We
by a car.
didn't murder it.
Yeah,
Somebody else did. I like one of the notes I wrote was like, oh my God, usually a horror movie knows better than to harm a cat. Like, usually horror movies happy to harm dogs.
Mhm.
I can think of very few horror movies that have harmed
I
cats.
could name a non-horror movie that harmed cats and dogs.
Oh.
Milo and Otis. They killed like 10 kittens on the.
Jesus.
They were like,
Christ.
"Oh, just feed it to the bear. That's fine.
Oh.
We'll get another one.
My God.
Just send the
what?
cat down the river. It's fine. We'll
Jesus
just get another one."
Christ.
Yeah, it's notoriously.
That's so awful.
It's sad. I can't watch it anymore.
That's so
It popped up on like a Disney Plus Live, and I was like, "Well, that's just a bunch of
No.
fucking murder happening on screen." So,
Oh God.
but yeah, this one was not. He was
my
just a
God.
little frozen baby.
Pre-murdered, yeah.
And I wrote, any guesses on what the brains and the severed heads were made out of for this?
It felt like the sort of thing that looked like they probably got actual stuff from a butcher shop.
Yeah, real blood, real guts. They used a combination of steer meat byproducts, ground beef and
Uh-huh.
fake blood to make the brains. And they use some intestines too, I think,
Makes
from
sense.
cows as well. And so they I'm surprised you didn't see this. One of their biggest suppliers, and I think they might have credited to it, was a local meat market.
Ah, that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep,
And
yep, yep.
in one particular scene, they shot with the brains. It was like in the autopsy room, and the severed head was thrown out
Mhm.
the doors. The crew all posted up behind the cameras with garbage bags over their clothes
Oh,
because no
no.
one knew how much the brains would splatter. So they
Oh,
just like I can't imagine just being on set that
that's
day and
so
everyone's like just
gross.
bundled up like umbrellas perhaps like we're good. I hope the little cameras got little trash bags too to protect
Yeah.
them. But
Oh,
I thought that
little
was really
camera
cute.
umbrellas. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
um
They definitely had that texture that you only get from actual flesh of some kind,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. I'm gonna skip over some of this because I kind of want to get to the end. Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip over some of this. So getting to the release of the film, um, I thought this was in the behind the scenes making of, and I didn't find this out until last night, which a scene that almost didn't make it into the film, which was the whole opening scene. So those 2 days of reshoots,
Were
this
the
was
opening.
actually one of the
Oh,
things
that's
that they
so
shot.
interesting.
So they didn't shoot that scene initially because they were obviously on such a tight budget, tight
Yeah.
shooting schedule that they like I don't think they had that planned.
Well, and I imagine if you're looking for things to cut, that's the only thing that happens in this location.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
easiest
Yeah,
piece to pull out.
and
Yeah.
that was definitely shot on location too.
Yeah.
So, they didn't shoot that until after fully wrapping. It was a reshoot, and it was actually Brian's idea, producer Brian. He said he didn't feel that audience would be ready for the tone of the movie unless,
Oh,
quote,
interesting.
they didn't get a taste of it up front. So it was his idea. Stuart was like, sure, whatever, like, you're helping me out. Like,
Yeah.
we'll do it. And then afterwards, Stuart was like, oh, yeah, no, I think that was a
It's a
great way
really
to
good
set up.
idea. It's a cold open, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
I think the film is so shocking,
mm-hmm.
especially towards the end. You watch it in your 3 chunks, you've learned in the 3rd chunk how, like, off the fucking rails it goes,
Yup.
so I do think that was a really smart thing for them to just and they also have, in the behind the scenes, they talk about how they did the guy's, like, eyes exploding, so I would say
So
watch it, it's very cool.
satisfying.
I'm not getting into that due to time.
I'm so
Um,
sorry.
no, me and you have so
There's so much to
there's
talk
so many
about.
things.
Ugh.
And so Re-Animator premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May of 1985 and received surprisingly a standing ovation from audiences.
Goddamn right it
I
did. I
know. I
love
kind of
that.
expected this to get a lot of shit, but it did
Yeah.
not. And apparently the first cut of this film was 2.5 hours long. I
God
need to
damn.
fucking see it compared to the release version, which was only 87
I
minutes.
can't
I
imagine.
know.
And the fact that that version got a standing
A
ovation.
standing ovation.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least the uncensored Re-Animator. God damn.
Yeah. It currently has a 94% on IMDb and a
Wow.
7.1 out of 10 on oh,
Or 94 on Rotten
Rotten
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I rewrote that. And then 7.1 out of I was like, "Wait a second.
Wow.
Percentages on IMDb?" 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
Damn. Go Re-Animator.
And yeah, kind of bringing it back to older episodes. I feel like I haven't done this in a while. I have the October 18th, 1985 review from Roger Ebert himself, where
Yes.
he gives Re-Animator a 3 out of 4 stars, and I have quotes from
Oh,
him.
this is amazing because I also brought in Ebert
Oh my
quotes
god, stop.
today. So,
We really paralleled
yep.
on this one,
Uh-huh.
damn. We can't do things that are this
This is, yeah.
similar again. We will have to split this up in
Yeah.
2 parts. So he kicks it off, his review off by stating, quote, "One of the pleasures of movies, however, is to find a movie that chooses a disreputable genre and then tries with all its might to transcend the genre, to go over the top into some kind of artistic vision, however weird."
I love that.
Ugh. And
Mm.
then he continues, Stuart Gordon's Re-Animator is a pleasure like that. A frankly gory horror movie that finds a rhythm and style that make it work in a cockeyed, offbeat sort of way. Which I love that he's just acknowledging the
Mm-hmm.
weirdness.
The
And
like
then
revelry in the gore. Also
yeah.
put a pin in the pleasure of gore for when we get over
Ooh.
to
Oh
Hellraiser.
yeah. I mean,
Put a
come on.
Hellraiser pin in it.
Put a Hellraiser
Yeah.
put a pin in your head
Put
for that one.
put a pinhead in it.
And then I want to finish out with the rest of his quote. The whole his whole review was amazing. He said, I walked out somewhat surprised and reinvigorated, if not reanimated, by a movie that had the audience emitting taxi whistles and wild goat cries.
Oh my God.
In its own way, on its own terms, in its corrupt genre, this movie worked as well as any other movie in the festival. We have been assaulted by a lurid imagination, amazed by unspeakable sights, blindsided by the movie's curiously dry sense of humor. I guess that's our money's worth.
I'm sorry, I just can't get past wild goat cries.
I know. I stopped there earlier too because I was like, what? I don't even want to. I was about to attempt to do a wild goat cry, and I think I'm going to hold myself.
Yeah,
in.
I can't. So I
Yeah.
can't let myself.
Yeah. So I just love the reaction to this. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I feel like we don't get a
Yeah.
lot with cult horror. We don't really see the love
It's
at the
really,
beginning.
yeah, it's
So
really
it feels
understood for what
good.
it is at the time that it's released.
And now I'm
so-
mad that I doubted it. You know what I mean? I'm mad that I
Yeah.
thought it was not going to get a good response. So
Yeah.
shame on me.
Oh, I love that.
And then in a very tiny, because I'm an
Yes!
hour in already,
Ugh.
the film theory tiny desk corner.
Yes.
You brought it up at the beginning. We'll round it out at the end. Is my question of is Re-Animator ultimately a tragic gay love story?
Yes.
I
Yes,
know!
of course it is.
So, rewatching it, I did find an article. So I would say I'm not going to spend much time on it, but Medium.com has an article all about it being a queer film.
Oh my God, yeah.
um,
Well, so
but
much
to-
of it is like
I was gonna, I was like,
Herbert
run
West
down.
being like, leave your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Come make bodies
Well, also
with me.
two men
Like,
creating life together on
Yeah.
top of it. And in the original H.P. Lovecraft, because he never really puts women in anything, Meg was like not a character. They added her in as this like little love story. But yeah, I absolutely think it is. And it is fascinating and fun to watch that way.
Mhm.
But there is we should link, I would love to link the Medium article that I read because it did a
Yes.
really good job of kind of breaking it down. But yeah, all the tension that's in there, the love triangle.
Oh my God,
yeah.
yeah. Just
yeah.
how much Herbert hates Meg?
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah. For no
for
fucking
no
reason.
For absolutely
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Like,
Our two
yeah.
little gay icons in
Yeah.
this. So
Oh, I love that.
that's I'm sorry.
was
that
so
was I tried so
satisfying.
hard to like
We knew
y'all,
this
I
was
was
going to be a
skipping
long
over
one.
things.
Oh
So
my
if I'm
God.
disjointed, it's because 12 pages I think I read maybe 10.
Jesus Christ. I'm impressed that you got that much.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Ugh.
Again, watch the Re-Animator Resurrects on YouTube. There's just amazing interviews and footage, and there were so many sources for this one. It was nice,
That's
but
so
also I
satisfying.
hate when there's too many.
Yeah, it becomes very overwhelming very fast.
Very fast. Yeah. Again, it took me an hour
Yeah.
to write notes for,
For
6 minutes. I literally looked up. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So yeah, so many juicy things on this one, and I think it's so beloved. And
Yeah.
even though you watched it in 3 parts, thoughts?
I
Vibes?
loved it. It
Yeah.
was amazing. It's so scuzzy. It's just gross.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want something that like rolls around in the grossness.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's fucked up,
Yeah. And it
um,
like it goes
but in
there.
a very like liberating way. It's very
Yeah.
fucked up.
And it doesn't feel like it takes itself too seriously. It feels like it knows exactly what it's trying
Oh,
to
for
do
sure.
and be and goes right for it and
Yeah. Once they
does it
figured out
and
the
is it.
script,
Yeah.
once they got there, they knew exactly what they wanted.
Yeah. And it's like
Yeah.
it's just it just hits.
Yeah.
It's just really satisfying.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
satisfying. The love that went behind it, the fact that it was everyone's passion
You
project,
can feel
also
that.
just
You
it
can
hits
feel
extra
that.
hard. So
Yeah. It oozes out of it.
on that note, we need a much deserved break in
break,
between our
yeah.
before we jump into
Before we
Hellraiser.
come back
I
with
can't
our
wait to
pins in.
listen. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
I'm so scared.
We'll be right back.
We know how much you love stories of horror and gore. Meet our sponsor, Beasley Books, the independent bookstore owned by author George R.R. Martin in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beasley specializes in autographed titles, rare editions, and speculative fiction, which includes sci-fi, fantasy, and of course, horror. You can find many authors whose adaptations we've covered at Beasley, including Stephen King, Clive Barker, and more, alongside the likes of Nick Cutter, Shirley Jackson, and Anne Rice. Visit the Santa Fe storefront Wednesday through Sunday at 418 Montezuma, or shop online anytime. I don't know why I'm Irish now, but you can find them at BeasleyBooks.com or on Instagram at BeasleyBooks418. And make sure you use code SPLICE10 to save 10% when you shop online. SPLICE10 to save 10% when you shop online. Bye.
And we're back. Oh, I know
We were
you're
just shooting the
excited
shit
for
for a
this.
second.
Yeah, we didn't realize that everything was speeding.
I said I'm excited to be sitting and listening because, again, being 2
Yep.
weeks away from my notes
Glad you feel that
and
way,
finally
Al.
watching the movie again last night, and then having to cut through, slice through them. I am pooped. Splice through them. I'm pooped. I'm tired. I am
No.
so excited to hear about one of my favorite horror movies. So
Well, I'm glad one of us is excited.
like I can't
'cause
see you
am
today.
So just
Sit
craning
up.
around the mics. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna start you off with a tidbit.
yay. Okay.
I'm gonna talk really fast because again, I have so many notes for this film, and there are also so many.
We got cards.
We got cards.
We
We got
empty
cards, baby.
I think we have 4 hours. I double checked.
Love
Travis was
that
like, "How
for
long do you think this
us.
is going to be?" And I'm like, "At least
Long.
2.5 hours."
Oh yeah, this is gonna be our longest in a hot second
Yeah.
for sure. So to start out, we were just joking about Hellraiser taglines. Actually,
Yes. Yeah.
we love a good
Ugh,
tagline.
we do.
Obviously, a movie like this had some good taglines because there
yeah.
are so many dialogue pieces in this movie that are
And all those
tagline worthy.
Yeah, all those good quotes are like condensed in that.
They're like the
ending,
perfect
too. Ugh.
size too. Yeah, they're like bite sized. So I brought in a whole bunch of taglines, and then I brought in a visual tidbit.
Oh God. A
So
visual aid.
a visual aid, if you will. So some of the original taglines include "demon to some, angel to others."
That's bad. I don't like that one.
It's not good.
Mhm.
Much worse. Satan's done waiting.
That's actually tattooed on my tummy.
with like an
Little devil horns at the
apostrophe.
end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Say yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The apostrophe is a little devil horn.
It's a devil
actually.
horn, yeah.
Yeah.
We have such sights to show you, which obviously.
Amazing. Yeah. That line.
And there were no limits, which
There were no
hot.
limits.
There are no limits. Hot. I like that one. But
Kinky. Yeah.
hilariously, there was actually a reference to another movie's tagline in the original poster for Hellraiser. When it was
Oh.
first released, they copied the exact same tagline and font
Whoa.
from the poster for, guess what?
Ugh.
The Who's Tommy.
Oh, we were just
Yes,
talking
we were just
about that
talking
the
about
other
this.
day.
And the tagline, "He will tear your soul apart." Look at this. Here's the Tommy poster.
Oh my God, give me.
And then
was a
scroll
weird rating.
down. I've got the Hellraiser poster right underneath it. It is unreal.
Whoa.
It's the exact same font.
That's so funny.
I don't know why they did this, but it's
That's
a
what they were
thing.
listening to while
Yep.
designing it. And they were like, you know what? Honestly, I feel that sometimes. Because sometimes I design posters because I'm like listening to something and then I see something. So
I think I do actually have some notes in here about what they were listening to while they were working on the movie. So we'll get there.
that's so funny. We
but-
both have homages
Oh,
to
yes. To
Huh.
earlier movies. But of all things, The Who's Tommy?
Honestly, that album fucks, but yeah,
It's
very
good,
random.
but like, what's the connection
Yeah,
there? Clive
maybe they were just
Barker?
listening.
Maybe they were just listening. So anyway, Hellraiser 1987. Let's dive in. Directed by the man himself, Clive Barker,
Yeah.
who, again, we haven't talked about since Candyman, which was the film that I picked for my first segment on the podcast. That was our I think that was our
Ooh, I think
very
you're right.
first. Like
Ew,
after
that's forever
our
ago.
top 5 Halloween
Yeah.
horror. I think Candyman was my
Candyman Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wild.
So, Clive Barker is very important to me.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of the reasons why. Obviously, this was his directorial debut based on his own story, The Hellbound Heart, which personally I
Ooh.
think is a better title than Hellraiser, but whatever. We're going to talk a little bit about the title in a second. He chose to direct this himself because he wasn't happy with how previous adaptations of his work had gone.
I was wondering why he had, because we were
Why?
talking about, we forgot that he directed it.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah.
And he actually, I found an interview with him from like not that long ago calling the previous adaptations of his work cinematic abominations, which
That'll
like
make you direct.
what a catty bitch. I love
Yeah,
it.
damn.
I
And don't give
also
your rights away, bro.
yeah, I have another visual aid
Oh my
here.
gosh, I
This
love this.
is
I love when you
Clive
come with
Barker at the time of Hellraiser
Oh my
on the
god.
set of
Oh
Hellraiser,
my
looking like
gosh.
a baby.
He is such a baby. He looks like freshly like 25
I
there.
know. He's
Oh my
like
gosh.
just barely
I
out
just
of
forget what he looks like.
the
Barely out of the womb.
barely out of the egg. I don't know why. It feels
Barely
like
hatched.
barely hatched. So there actually hadn't been that many adaptations of his work for him to hate
I
until
was
this
gonna
point.
say how many
'Cause,
things before.
yeah, I was like 1987. We hadn't had Candyman at this point. Like that's 92. What are you so mad about, Clive? At this point, the only adaptations that had been done were a movie called Rawhead Rex from 1986, which
Yikes.
sounds like a
title.
porno.
That sounds
Sounds like a porno.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Then
Rawhead
Underworld from 1985.
Huh.
So to my mind, it may have been him getting the film bug as much as him being that disappointed by other adaptations. Because again, you've
Right.
only had two,
I was
as
gonna
far as
say,
I know.
yeah, I wonder if he was like, those are shitty. I can probably
I can do better. Yeah, which like
I mean, hey,
He
he gave us
did-
Hellraiser, so he kind of did.
for the most part, I think it was a very successful directorial debut. I have some issues with the last like 5 minutes where I'm like, I feel like this would be a better movie if you just cut before we get back to like the teenage straight couple doing their straight
Oh.
teenage thing. Like just leave me on queer hell.
Yeah.
That's the note I
Leave
want to
me
go
there,
out on.
please.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
But for your first film, coming from
So
another medium
iconic.
that's so different, I think for the most part a very successful
yeah,
adaptation.
absolutely.
He also had worked for a long time as a playwright, though,
Hmm.
and so he drew a lot of cast and crew from his own time in the theater scene.
These
We're
are-
going to talk a lot about that.
Damn.
Butterball, that particular,
Butterball.
the Cenobite in like the fat suit.
Oh, he's called Butterball?
He's called
I always
Butterball.
forget because I also call Chatterer. I call him Chatterbox.
Mhm,
He's my
yeah.
favorite.
Chatter,
They're
yeah.
my favorite. Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
talk about them.
Butterball.
So, we have going into the cast. We have Andrew Robinson as Larry Cotton, who is also Garak. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Garak?
Garak in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Is that right? I don't know, y'all. It's fine. Garak.
Amazing. Can you actually talk the rest of the time with emphasis like that?
Garak.
so
He
funny.
was also in Dirty Harry. He was in Child's Play 3. He guest starred in basically every 80s and 90s TV show you can think of, had like little spots here and there. We have Claire Higgins as Julia Cotton, who bizarrely is like one of the only characters who's not overdubbed to get rid of her British accent. So
Funny.
she's like got the English accent and nobody else does. And it's like this weird,
Yeah.
except for like some of the minor characters do too, and so you're left with this weird sense of like, where does this happen?
Yeah.
Which Clive Barker goes on to say is one of the things he's least pleased with, and we'll talk
Good.
about why it happened. But
Yeah.
anyway, put a pin in that. Put a pinhead in it.
Yeah, another pinhead.
So Claire Higgins was Mrs. Gilmore in Ready Player One. She's also Mrs. Bartlett in Downton Abbey. She was in Stage Beauty, and she comes back as Julia in Hellbound Hellraiser 2. We have Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty Cotton.
Kirsty Cotton.
Kirsty Cotton,
forgot
what
it's
a
a full
name. Weirdly hard for me to say,
Yeah.
so bear with me, everybody. She's also in Creepshow. She's in
Mm.
multiple Hellraiser sequels, and she appears in the music video for Slipknot's Snuff. So
Amazing.
I don't know. I feel
I
like
love a music video cameo from
yeah, always
an
gotta
actor.
always
Yeah.
gotta shout those out. Then we have Sean Chapman as Frank Cotton, also in The Fourth Protocol, A Mighty Heart, Hellraiser 2, and voiced Psycho in the video game franchise Crisis, which I feel like I try to shout out when there's like horror or horror adjacent video
yeah.
game stuff too.
Yeah, so funny. I did the Texas Chainsaw video game.
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah. We have Oliver Smith as Skinless Frank. He was also Drac in Doctor Who back in the 80s. He was Smudger in the TV series Boone, and Browning in Hellraiser 2. So comes back but with a different character.
Oh, interesting.
And then Doug Bradley as our lead Cenobite, better known to us all as Pinhead.
Yes.
And I want to take a little longer on him because his history with Clive is super interesting. That's who
Ooh.
I showed you the photo of Clive
Yes.
and Doug hanging out on set. They'd been like really good buddies since their school days, went to school
Oh,
together.
cute.
Founded a theater troupe together in the 70s called Dog Company.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Bad name.
He was
Clive, are you a writer?
write something better,
Yeah,
Clive.
write something better, please. Workshop.
He was Dirk in Nightbreed, which is obviously another Clive Barker adaptation. He's Tollington in Book of Blood, another Clive Barker adaptation. He's King Conrad in the upcoming Witch Hunter. And he's done voice work in several Star Wars video games. But this project was his first feature as a performer,
Oh, wow.
which I think it's interesting that he comes from a theater background, and I think that very much comes across in the way
Yeah.
he performs this part. He had, though, previously been in 2 Clive Barker directed short films. So
Oh,
Clive had
okay.
done a little bit of kind of
Work with him.
experimenting, dipping his toes into film work with Doug Bradley before.
Yeah.
And those 2 shorts were Salome and The Forbidden, which is an adaptation of the same Clive Barker story that later turns into Candyman. So if that sounds familiar,
Very
that's
cool.
why. Put a Pinhead pin in that. He
I got 3
also,
pins.
great, love it.
Full head by the end of this.
That's the goal. My goal is to fully fill out Al's face with pins.
Damn it, we should have brought something like that. Some eyelash glue and some pins.
Play along at home,
Yeah.
everybody. So he also gets credited in the makeup department on a couple of subsequent Hellraiser franchise projects,
Oh.
which I think maybe partially because like it was such an extensive process that I've seen
Like,
people say that he became so good at it that he kind of like ended up going on to teach other teams in subsequent sequels how to
Wow.
do the Hellraiser look.
Oh, love.
So
Cute.
a note on the name Pinhead, though,
Yeah.
that was coined by the makeup crew, and Clive Barker hates it.
Yeah.
He thinks that it is undignified, which I'm like, Clive Barker, you made Kink the horror movie.
Yeah.
Is dignified really what we're going for here? Like,
What
you
a
have
weird-
such sights to show me.
what's-
Don't worry about dignity.
I was gonna say, what's undignified about calling something what it looks like?
Yeah, he's a pinhead.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
There are pins in his head.
There are pins in his head.
Is there another way to say that? What did he want to call Pinhead?
So
Or in the
in the
story.
novel The Scarlet Gospels, which is where this character kind of becomes a more major figure, because also in the novel, the Pinhead Cenobite is not really the main Cenobite, and we're going to talk about why that change happened too. But in the Scarlet Gospels, he's just called the Hell Priest, and Butterball is kind of more in the leadership role.
Okay, was it Butterball in the script or in the book?
Is Butterball
Is
in the
that
book.
dignified?
Right? Right? So
Butterball?
Butterball is fine, but Pinhead is a bridge too far?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Clive.
Okay.
Wild.
That's why men should sometimes just shh.
Yeah. Yep. So, moving into background, basically, Clive Barker is like, need to direct my own work. I can't have another cinematic abomination.
Can't.
So
Can't go on.
he goes up to producer Christopher Figg, and he's basically like, how tiny does the budget have to be for me as a first-time director with no experience to be able to convince a studio to let me direct my own work?
Yeah.
Which I love that.
Yeah. What do I need to do?
And Fig is like, it's going to have to be under 1 million, which is doable basically if you pick something that's just in one location and use mainly unknown actors. And so based on that, he's like, okay, I'm going to adapt The Hellbound Heart. That's probably my cheapest adaptation candidate from my own books, which is why he even goes for this.
Yeah.
And Hellraiser was not always the name.
Oh,
This
God.
film's working title.
Ugh, it's gonna be so dignified.
Oh, it's
It's gonna be
dignified, all right.
so dignified.
Was Sadomasochists from Beyond the Grave. Dignified.
Pause.
Yeah.
Let's just pause for
Mhm.
5 seconds. Yikes.
Yeah.
That sounds so like schlocky.
Yeah.
I would definitely watch it off the
Oh, I would
title.
absolutely watch it off the title, but it's not what I'd call dignified.
Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Come on.
Barker was leaning towards Hellbound, which I think is really good. They go on to use that for, I think, the second installment, but instead producer Fig is the one who suggests Hellraiser. And according to IMDb, which again,
Yeah.
I
ugh,
fact
loose
checked it
source,
as much
loose
as I could,
source.
loose source, but according to IMDb, I included this because it's funny.
Yeah.
A 60-year-old female crew member suggested the title "What a Woman Will Do for a Good Fuck" instead.
Is it the dildo enthusiast?
I was gonna say she just hopped off
She
of
made
your
her
set
way,
right onto
yeah,
here
yeah.
and dropped a dildo
She
and left.
skedaddled
Yeah.
over. In my head, that's
Yep.
the lore.
100%.
She goes on IMDb dropping her own facts. I think she does.
Leaving a trail of dildos
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
her.
That's so funny.
It's amazing. Doug Bradley himself kind of describes the film as a sort of hell is prison metaphor, which I think is pretty obvious. Like the box
Oh, for
is the
sure.
key, the demons are the escaped prisoners, the cenobites are the jailers, Pinhead's the warden.
Yeah.
And as written, Chatterer and Butterball are supposed to have dialogue. The reason that they don't is because they get on set and get in the makeup and they realize they
can't
can't talk with the
talk?
prosthetics.
Yeah, no shit.
And so the lines get redistributed to the female Cenobite and Pinhead, which completely shifts the dynamic. So that is not how it was scripted. Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that so much. That makes me so sad. Chatter is my favorite.
Chatter's amazing. But
Yeah.
it's such a great look, and I think it would be much less scary if we saw that creature talking.
Yeah. Butterball actually scares me the most. I'm horrified.
Yeah.
Didn't know his name was Butterball.
Pinhead,
so-
I'm just like, Mommy?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's
The rest of the three,
Yeah.
Cheddar can get it. Sorry,
yeah.
saying it. Putting
all of
that
them
out.
all of them except Butterball can get it.
Yeah, sorry.
honestly.
He just gives
Yeah.
me the glasses. Give me creep vibes. Him and Dr. Hill can kind of hang out
It's
together.
the glasses, isn't
yeah,
it?
there's something about the like. his vibe.
There's
I
something
feel like he had a cute
uncanny
little
about the
hat.
glasses. Yeah.
Or maybe some like a harness situation, like a daddy cap.
I feel
Like a
like
daddy
if
cap
you
and-
dressed him like he'd just come from the Folsom Street Parade, I could see it.
Yeah,
But-
in this fit, he's giving.
It's not the best look for him.
Yeah, it's
yeah. He
giving
needs to
Dr.
find
Hill.
his look. Yeah, love that we're on the
Not
same
to
page.
shame clothes, but that's so
so
funny. That's wild.
right, it would have been a
I would've
completely
hated it.
different movie
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they'd
yeah.
all talked. And I'm so glad that Clive Barker was able to go, okay, the way I'd envisioned this does not work. What's the adaptation that I can do on set to make this work? And
Yeah.
redistributes it between the two of them. And I also love that Pinhead and the female Cenobite are the only two who talk, which
Mhm.
we're going to talk about her a little bit. She's
I
amazing.
love her.
She's, yeah,
Yeah.
put a pin in her throat.
4 pinheads.
Yeah. So, because this was being made in the heyday of movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, the money people wanted Pinhead to either be kind of cracking jokes the whole time, the way Freddy Krueger does, or to be completely silent, the way like Jason
Okay.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Which Barker didn't want. He wanted something more like Christopher Lee's Dracula. Another little connection
Oh God,
between
what the
our
fuck
films.
happened with
I
these
know.
films? Were you just like clutching your pearls all the time?
Yeah, I was like
I was too
trying
busy bringing
to.
notes.
I was trying to keep a poker face
yeah, you did a good job.
to wait
Oh
for
my
this. So
gosh.
here's a quote. I found this attributed in different articles to both Clive Barker and Doug Bradley. It was one of the two of them.
Mhm.
The quote itself is quoted the same in every place, so I think
Okay.
it's a good quote. I
Okay.
just don't know which of the two of them said it. Quote, part of the chill of Dracula surely lies in the fact that he's very clearly and articulately aware of what he's doing. You feel that this is a penetrating intelligence, and I don't find dumb things terribly scary. I find intelligence scary, particularly twisted intelligence. It's one of the reasons why Hannibal Lecter is scary, isn't it? It's because you always feel that he's going to be 3 jumps ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I think one more key thing to keep in mind about Pinhead is that in the source material, Hellpriest's gender is never revealed.
That feels right.
It feels right.
Yeah,
And the character is
that's
sort
cool.
of described in feminine terms.
That's why
So
what's her name goes on to
Jamie
play.
Clayton.
Yeah, it's Jamie Clayton. I always forget her fucking
Ah.
name, but I've
Yeah.
been bullying Siena to watch this Hellraiser, so
Yeah,
I can
so that
bully
now I
you
can-
to
yeah.
watch. God, she's hot.
Yeah, no, I watched this with my partner and we both like turned it off and we're like, okay, so we need to start the Jamie Clayton like immediately now,
abso-fucking-lutely.
right? Yeah.
That's so cool. That makes sense now of why,
Mhm.
because that's how I always how I envision Pinhead, anyways.
I mean, again, like I said, like Pinhead is mommy, not
Yeah,
daddy. Like Pinhead
yeah,
has
it gives
very
mommy.
femme energy.
Yeah, there's something
and like
about
there's
it that
something very like
feels-
genderqueer about the character
For
that I think
sure.
is part of why it's had such like long-lasting love in the queer community, and so
Absolutely. Yeah.
we're
I
gonna
didn't know that was originally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very cool.
So moving into themes, approach, and history. Remember me telling you to put a pin in those 2 shorts that Barker and Bradley had done in
Yes.
a theater
Taking the
group
pin
together?
out? Do I take the pin out? Leave it in?
Yep, take it
Okay.
out. So the second of those 2 shorts, The Forbidden, the one that's based on
Yes.
the same source material as Candyman,
Mhm.
features a wooden box with 6 nails in it that's lit to make the nails' shadows distort across the surface.
Ooh.
And so that look is something that's been in the works on camera between Doug Bradley and Clive Barker for a very long
Oh,
time.
wow.
And so you see in that box the imagery that becomes both, oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of it, but the puzzle box that
Yeah.
opens the gateway and Pinhead's look himself, because part of what they were going for with that was the way the light plays across the face and distorts the
Of
pins.
course, of course.
So
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
yeah, so this is something that you can like trace through their
Back.
collaborations
Ooh,
over
that's
time.
really, really awesome to see
Love.
develop.
And here's something that I didn't know. The word cenobite
Yeah.
does not come from this. I thought that was a Clive
Oh,
Barker created word.
same.
Cenobite just means a member of a monastic community. It's a word that comes
Oh.
from the same linguistic roots as the word convent. And so
Oh.
it literally is just like a monk. And I'd never known that. I thought it was like a
I don't like.
sci-fi only Clive
Yeah,
Barker
me too.
invented word.
I'm gonna stay there.
And wait. I have something that might change your feelings on
Okay.
it.
Okay.
The monastic community that the
Monastic's a great
Cenobites
word.
in the book
Yes.
are members of
Yeah.
gets a name.
Oh God.
Do you want to take a guess at what it is?
I have no fucking idea.
The Cenobites are members of the Order of the Gash. Isn't that amazing?
God.
Isn't that amazing?
How
Like
do
again,
we become members?
honey, we already are.
I That happened many moons ago. Oh my
Literally.
God. Order of the Gash.
Yeah, like again, you want to talk about the gender queerness of this film?
Can
like,
we call all of you guys?
vote on it.
Fan name is the Order of the Gash. Do you guys like it? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yes or also yes?
Yeah, yes, or even more yes.
Or yes.
Oh
hate that. I
my
should not say
God,
it
we're
that
the
again.
worst.
Oh my God. That's, I would have never, imagine
The
I guessed
Order of the
that.
Gash. That would
We could have left. We actually
That's
would
why
be
I
done.
had to give you the opportunity, because I
Oh
was
my
like, there's a
God.
wild world in which Al says something bizarrely close to this, actually.
That is insane.
Yep. Order of the
Okay,
Gash.
Clive.
Yep. So, and one of the
Ally.
oh, Clive Barker is more than just an ally. We're going
Is
to
he
talk
queer?
about
I don't know anything about him. Sorry. Skip
Put a pin in it.
Oh,
Put a pin in it.
oh, gotta take the pin back. Put it in.
Reuse
I already
that
have a
pin from
gash
earlier.
open in
Yeah,
my head,
perfect.
so.
Join the order.
Yeah.
One of
Yes,
the
sir.
other points of inspiration for this is the idea. There's this urban legend of the Devil's Toy Box, which is either a box or a room. Have you heard about this? I hadn't. So for anybody who, like me, has been living under a rock, it's this idea of either a box or a room made of 6 mirrors all facing each other that's supposed to make anybody who enters it lose their mind.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right? Is there anything that I'm missing?
That's the extent.
Okay,
I think
great.
at one point
That's what I could find.
I looked
so.
into this in like
Great.
college.
That
Probably
tracks
with
for
a
you.
film
Yep.
class. Yeah,
Yep.
But
Okay.
yeah, that's all I know. So sorry, I can't expand
Love.
like Siena can
Perfect.
expand on things like that.
So, moving into production, financing came from New World Pictures, which is the company that used to be owned by Roger Corman. So we've talked about New World a little bit in the past. We also mentioned it on the Children of the Corn episode too. They produced that. And again, budget, same as your film,
It's so
900
crazy.
to 1 mil.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm not 100% sure, but I would guess that's probably in pounds rather than dollars.
Sure.
So I didn't do the math this time on what the conversion rate
Yeah.
was to like pounds in
Pretty
1987.
close-ish.
But I think it's pretty remarkable that they were the same budget.
Yeah.
Originally supposed to be 7-week shoot, which is also really interesting because look at
wow.
that. Yours same budget,
18.
18 days versus
Yeah.
7 weeks. Shooting in England was cheaper at the time. But New World in kind of a similar story, New World sees the footage, is like, wait, this is really good, extends the shoot to 9 to 10 weeks, gives them
Holy
more
shit.
time. And so
many weeks.
yeah, it's a long time for something like this.
Yeah.
So that they can go back and reshoot some of the key sequences with a better budget.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that they redo is Frank getting ripped apart at the end, which
It's so good. All
yeah.
the Frank scenes, man.
Frank is something. Frank is something. And we're going to talk about how those scenes were filmed too, because there's some really good behind the scenes details. But before we move into the actual production, I just want to note that Clive Barker was the first to admit how inexperienced he was.
Oh, really?
Which I really love.
Yeah, damn, I was not expecting that from him.
And so here's a quote. He said, "I didn't know the difference between a 10mm lens and a 35mm lens. If you'd shown me a plate of spaghetti and said that was a lens, I might have believed you."
That's so funny that they both were like
him.
openly like, I don't know what the fuck I'm
Yeah.
doing here.
Again, so many parallels.
Wow. And God, they made like two of the most like
They're so good.
movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's such delightfully queer,
Yeah.
gross
Holy
films. So cast and crew,
shit.
the studio wanted to have stuntmen playing the Cenobites, essentially to save on budget, basically, because they were going to be doing stunts, I think, and so they thought it would be cheaper to have it just be one person.
What are they doing?
Barker fought to cast actors instead, particularly, because he was like, the physical performance of the character's body language is going to be so crucial to this coming across the right way, even if they never speak on screen.
Well, it's so yeah, the way they move is comes from the character.
It
I mean,
so
some men are pretty
does.
fucking awesome, so I don't want to like be like they could never do
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
They absolutely fucking could.
Yeah,
They are
and
body
stuntmen's
movers, but
work involves a lot of acting, and I don't want to discount that.
absolutely.
But like the fact that he really was looking at this as like, this isn't a stunt. This is
right. Yeah.
a character.
Yes.
I think is really significant. And again, here's where we get to the overdubbing. They only did this after the film had already been filmed. This was one of the things that New World is like, this is looking really good. We think that it'll do better if it's
too
American,
British.
though. Yeah. Which, like, it was filmed in Britain, about Britain, with an all British cast, directed by a British director based off of his very British story.
Yeah.
And so it creates this weird...
What would you imagine? You did all your, and someone's like,
Yeah.
actually, we got to dub every single scene with British
I
actors.
can't.
Imagine going
I
back.
would lose
I'd be
it.
like, no.
Yeah, but again, he's so inexperienced. Like, he probably doesn't even realize that this is like
He's like,
not a thing that gets done.
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard of that before.
Going back, be like, it's too.
Yeah, like it's one thing to look at like a Giallo movie where you know that like all of the actors are speaking different languages. Half of them speak English, half of them speak Italian. There's like not even audio rolling during production. It's all post-dubbed.
Exactly.
That's really different than rolling audio during production, planning to have it be synced.
For 9 to 10, like they
Which
gave them more weeks. So it's like you knew we
knew
at least
what we
one
were
week
doing.
in, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Did the suits not come to set? Like, what did they think?
I think it was genuinely like they weren't expecting the film to be that good, and then when they realized it was good, they were like, we want to push this, we want it to be bigger, we want to market it in America, and we don't think America's gonna buy it unless it's Americans, which is so
gross,
funny,
man.
Because like we're really not good at dealing with subtitles, but this isn't a subtitles case.
I was gonna say it's not.
And it's like we're really exposed to British accents.
Yeah.
We fetishize British accents.
I know, we really
like, what are
enjoy
we
that,
doing?
but actually would have fucked so hard.
Yeah. So it's a weird choice. And Clive Barker has since been like, I wish I'd said no to that. But, you know, it's
Do
his
they
first
have
film.
that original audio anywhere?
I don't
wanna
know.
watch that.
I'm so curious. Because again, they didn't overdub everybody. Like
How did I not
Julia's
know
still the
that?
same. Yeah. It's for the most part, I think they did a pretty decent
It just
job.
feels very like 80s, kind of like sometimes the audio just feels
It just
kind
feels
of,
a
like, weird
little bit
anyways.
off,
Yeah.
but like it's not. It doesn't feel to me like, oh, this whole thing was post dubbed.
No, I would have literally never guessed.
Yeah,
So good on them, I guess.
They did a good job. It was just like, why go to that wasted effort?
No idea.
Yeah. So weird. As you can imagine, given how long Doug Bradley and Clive Barker had been working together, Doug has a ton of amazing quotes about this experience. So for one, he kind of was reminiscing after the fact about how he and Clive went about building the character of Pinhead. And he said Barker told him to treat the character as, quote, a cross between an administrator and a surgeon who's responsible for running a hospital where there are no wards, only operating theaters, as well as being the man who wields the knife. He's the man who has to keep the timetable going. Great
That's
image.
perfect. Yeah.
Great image.
That came across for sure.
Mhm. And continuing another quote from him, kind of on, again, where this character came from in Clive's history. Doug said, quote, a line from one of Clive's plays swam into my mind, where a character says, quote, I am in mourning for my humanity. At this point, there was no backstory for the character, but I discussed this with Clive, and we'd agreed that he had once been human. But whether this was yesterday, last week, last year, 10, 100, 1,000 years ago, I didn't know. I don't need to. Sufficient to have that idea lodged into my brain, a perpetual unconscious grieving for the man he'd once been, for a life and a face that he couldn't even remember, and a frozen grief. I feel now that Pinhead existed in an emotional limbo where neither pain nor pleasure could touch him. A pretty good definition of hell for me. Which also just like feels very queer, honestly.
Yeah.
Very like the experience of like the struggles before you come out and like
sure.
coming to terms with your own identity.
Yeah, just
like
and leaving that version of yourself in the past.
yeah,
to kind of,
mourning like the vision that you have of yourself as like a straight cis person.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Oh
it's
my God, I love that. That imagery.
powerful.
Also mourning
Yeah,
humanity.
that sense
Ugh.
of this like deep sadness from the character, I think, is a big part of what's so compelling about it.
100%. And you can it's so portrayed, and that's what I think makes Pinhead such an interesting figure.
He's so juicy. There's so much going on under that pin-covered surface. And so Doug talked a bit about the process of getting into the makeup too. He said, quote, early on it was probably taking about 5 or 6 hours, but that speeded up to 3 or 4 hours when we were making the sequels. I was always fascinated by masking work, having done a lot of it in theater, so I approached the part excited by the makeup process. I didn't fight it like some actors do. I just sat on my backside, drinking coffee, listening to music, and making a general nuisance of myself.
Same.
And he
On the
goes,
daily.
here's the music reference I said. It's funny, I have specific musical memories attached to each movie. With Hellraiser, Capitol Radio was always on, and the song I associate with the film is Red Rain by Kate Bush and Peter Gabriel.
Come on. I was just singing Kate Bush yesterday.
So good.
That's amazing.
What a gay choice.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. It all kind of makes sense.
And
amazing.
so he recalls kind of his first time seeing himself in the Pinhead look and says, quote, the first time I wore it, I sat in front of the mirror trying to make friends with this new face. I had a sense of power, of majesty, of a kind of beauty. His threat is implied. Look what I did to myself. Now imagine what I can do to you.
Ooh, that's I love hearing these quotes about because it's gonna be such a as an actor having such a transformative look and playing such a weird. I mean, we've never really seen many characters like Pinhead.
Not before Pinhead.
Yeah,
Like that.
So
he really is something different.
Yeah.
Something different.
How fun.
And now moving on to some quotes from FX artist Bob Keane on creating that look.
Ooh.
He said, quote, originally, Pinhead wasn't like he is now at all. He was much more like the characters Shuna Sassy in Nightbreed, another Clive Barker, where it's all quills coming out of the top of his head. I was looking at this and going, Clive, we can't do this on this budget. And he said, okay, well, let's have a think about it. That's when we came up with this drawing of a grid on a life cast just to work out where we were going to put in what were originally going to be 6-inch nails. Clive looked at it, decided he really liked the symmetry of it, so he left the grid in. We were having real problems trying to contend with the aesthetics of a 6-inch nail, though. It was very crude, and it made the design look almost comical when the nails got in too deep, mainly because they would start like bouncing.
I was
they would
gonna
get too
say,
heavy.
yeah, because they look, it's not like a, you get so many of those.
Yeah,
It's gonna look a little
it's
goofy.
gonna get a little, I think, more phallic than you're intending it to be. So let's see. He says
very like Home Alone wasn't out at the time, but very like kind of slapstick.
It's goofy, yeah. And he said I suggested that maybe they should be like thin pins. To this day, I still credit the success of Pinhead to Doug Bradley. Only 10% of what Pinhead has become is due to our work, and 90% of Pinhead is what Doug brought to it and what Clive insisted that he was. He became this Bishop of Pain. Bishop of Pain band name. Yeah. I'm sure somebody's actually made that a band name. That
Bishop
probably
of
exists.
Pain kind of fucks, man.
It's really good, right?
Yeah.
Moving into the making of. So much has been said and written and speculated about the influences behind the Cenobite looks. Rightly so. There's clearly elements from the punk scene. There's stuff from traditional African sculptures, from various historical scarification processes that Barker was researching at the time. There's also a whole lot that comes from Clive Barker's time in kink clubs.
Oh, there we go. There it is.
He was originally supposed to have a Pinhead was supposed to have a belly button piercing. They cut that. But I just had to mention that.
Someone's
what
had
an
to have
image.
cosplayed that though at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my god.
And my notes say, but wait, let's go back to the S&M clubs.
Yeah, please do. Let's go back.
I have a quote. Barker says, quote, I was emotionally inspired by the clubs too. On S&M's sliding scale, I'm probably about a 6. There was an underground club called Cell Block 28 in New York that had a very hard S&M night. No drink, no drugs. They played it very straight. It was the first time I ever saw people pierced for fun. It was the first time I saw blood spilt. The austere atmosphere definitely informed Pinhead. And I got a good reaction from the S&M crowd and still do. I was validating a lifestyle. It was a celebration of the beauty of these strange secret rituals, which I think is like...
Oh my gosh, I love that. I had no idea.
Yeah, no, he's like...
I don't know much about him, again.
And this was a lot of what my partner and I ended up talking about after the movie was like, how much does it feel like something made from somebody within the community versus an outsider? And like, he was in it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He was in it. Yeah, he in particular was going to
confirmed.
clubs in New York and Amsterdam, which feels like
probably the best places.
probably
at
the
the time.
best places, probably the most like piercing heavy places too, I would
can
assume. So it
imagine.
makes sense with all of this skin piercing imagery that
Yeah.
shows up in the movie. So while creating the look of the film, Jane Wildgoose, cool name.
Oh my god, Wild
who
Goose.
who designed the Cenobite costumes. Clive Barker asked her to make 4 to 5 quote super butcher looks.
Super Butch looks, got it.
Super butcher.
No, Super Butch.
Super butch. God damn it. God damn it.
I think that was a misquote on
Yep.
someone part. Not yours, but someone else's.
Yeah, that sounds like Clive Barker. Well, so she's making these super butch looks while he's working to get the scarification just right.
See, it sounds better
Yeah,
already.
it does. It feels more natural. Just feels right,
It
you
feels
know?
good.
Super butch just feels right. So here's a quote from Jane. She says, "My notes say that he wanted 1. Areas of revealed flesh where some kind of torture has or is occurring. 2. Something associated with butchery involved. And then, here we have a very Clive turn of phrase I've written down. Quote, repulsive glamour.
Oh, come on.
The other notes I made about what he wanted were that they should be, quote, magnificent super butchers. Magnificent super butchers.
butches.
Yeah. There would be 1 or 2 of them with some hangers on, as he put it, and there would be 4 or 5 altogether. And because this is almost all, and we'll talk about the exception, but shot in a real house rather than a soundstage, the camera often doesn't have a whole lot of room to move, which is why you see so much reliance on vertical rather than horizontal movement. It's like they can't move side to
That
side,
makes so much sense.
but they can do these cranes up and down, and boy, do they take advantage of it, which I love. The one exception to that is when they got the money from New World to go back and reshoot stuff, they again decide to reshoot that climax scene of Frank getting pulled apart.
Yeah.
So they rebuild on a soundstage the
Oh.
attic from the actual house.
Oh.
And they're able to do it this time because it's on a soundstage. They do a false floor so that they can have people underneath with like pumps for the fake blood, with like people hiding under the floorboards, like puppet stuff
Oh
is
my gosh,
needed. So
love. Okay,
that's one
that
of the
makes
only
sense.
places that they actually have that freedom. The original opening sequence had Butterball rather than Pinhead reassembling the face, and so they went back and reshot that too, and used, much like your film, an actual tongue, eyes, and more from a butcher shop.
Oh.
And as the shift to emphasize Pinhead occurred, they decided that they wanted him to be the one leading you into the story, even though you don't see his face at that point.
Yeah.
So they go back to shoot Doug's hands.
Ah, nice.
Doug apparently had a very hard time hitting his marks on set, though, because, of course, this isn't just his first time in a feature film. He's also wearing black contact lenses that he can't see through, and giant, very trippable skirts.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
And
And
it
then you don't want to be
looks-
like looking down.
Right. And it looks to me, I'm not sure about this, but it kind of looked like a red pyramid type situation where it feels like he's got high heels on underneath those
Yeah.
skirts to look
Ooh.
higher and like
Yeah.
make the walk feel
Like a
more
little bit more.
stilted.
Yeah.
I'm not positive on that, but it
gives
has that look to me.
Yeah.
Simon Sace, who designed the special effects, handmade most of the components of the box.
Ooh.
And during a lot of the Cenobite scenes, he would be lying on the floor just outside a frame waiting to catch the box in case it dropped, because making
What
a
a job.
fresh one took him 8 hours.
Oh shit. Yeah. He's
Um,
like, I'm good. I will be posted up here.
yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I've had to build so many of them. And
So
so
cool.
if you want to know how to build a Hellraiser box, I've got quotes.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Here's a step-by-step from the designer. The process of making the box starts with a piece of wood, exactly 3 inch by 3 inch by 3 inch. There was some symbolism to the measurements. 3 by 3 is a magic number. To color the box, we used a wood stain. Mahogany mixed 50-50 with ivory, then
That's really
alizarin
DIY.
crimson and a dark blue, maybe Prussian blue. The etching is highly delicate, had to be designed in such a way that when the etching process took hold of the brass, it didn't fall to pieces. On the square boxes, it was relatively easy. I just had to cut them out and apply them to the box, which I did with PVA. Once that was all dry, I used a matte polyurethane varnish that had to be applied one side at a time,
my
then
gosh.
allowed to dry, so you could turn the box over and do the other side, so 6 times that amount to dry to do one box. And I would do about 10 to 15 boxes at a time.
Holy shit.
So
there's that 8 hours. to make
there's that
things.
8
Yeah.
hours, exactly. Author Paul Kane, who wrote a book called The Hellraiser Films and Their Legacy, writes in particular about female Cenobite.
Oh.
Take that pin out. Her throat wound.
Yes.
He writes
She's-
about it obviously
her.
as representation of male fear of female sexuality, which, like, I don't know if that's necessarily what it feels like to me, given that this is directed by a very queer man
Mhm.
who I don't think he's really even thinking
Thinking?
about that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
much.
yeah.
I think it's more just like they're part of the Order of the Gash, baby.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But according to that book, and at least the crew had a whole bunch of very graphic nicknames for her on set. And according to IMDb, one of the ones that I found was Deep Throat.
That's kind of good. I'm not gonna lie. That's kind of
It's really funny.
God damn it.
It's really
I
funny.
hope she was okay with those too.
I do too. I don't have information on how she felt about that,
Yikes.
but Deep Throat
Yeah.
is pretty funny.
That's pretty great.
And going back to Bob Keane from the special effects makeup team, remember there's like that weird kind of embryo organ thing growing under the floor in like a spider web?
Yeah, it's so good.
Made out of condoms. Made out of condoms.
really get like
They get the job done.
They do, man.
A t-shirt.
Not all the
condoms, They get
time,
the
but-
job done. So it was, quote, made out of a condom, a piece of tubing, some glue, and some bits and pieces to pull the whole thing together to make it look like a real human organ.
Ew.
In fact, according to the crew, so many of the special effects relied on condoms and lube that they thought the whole town thought that they were like hosting orgies.
Yeah.
because-
Clive's like, maybe.
Right?
Do you want me to?
Is that a request?
Yeah, the
Would you
wrap
like me to show you some
party, yeah.
sites? Something pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
And like obviously part of the reason this is not the first time that we've seen lube show up on a horror set.
Yeah, no.
But
Won't
part
be
of
the
the reason
last.
that they really wanted it for this was that Clive was really insistent on having as much of the film as possible look wet.
Ew,
And
yeah.
lube stays wet
does the
longer.
job.
Lube does the job.
Yep, yep, yep.
Condoms and lube, they get the job
They
done.
get the job done.
And Bob himself, that special effects artist, was only in his mid-20s at the time.
Gosh, baby.
But he had already worked on the original Star Wars trilogy and more than one Jim
wow.
Henson project.
Holy
so
shit.
he's like a wunderkind.
Yeah, no
Um,
shit.
But this is the first film that his brand new studio Image Animation, which he co-funds with this film's workshop supervisor, would take on. And so they go
Oh
on
shit,
to
that's so awesome.
be like
Holy
a really
shit.
big effects house.
Yeah.
The birth of Frank scene. That resurrection.
I love it so much.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
Do you want to take a guess at how they filmed this? Because I've never heard a story quite like this before.
I mean, the whole thing?
How they filmed the parts coming back together. So obviously there's
why
a
I
lot
was
of
hoping
reversed footage being used.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know there was, especially with the floor view.
But
You see a hole at one point in the floor where they like pumped it through.
yeah, they used the holes where the nails come through the floorboards to pump stuff through. But the part that I can't get over, they constructed the organs that Frank's body is made out of layers of wax with different melting points. They would layer them, burn them in really careful order, and then reverse the footage so that it looks like
Holy
it's
shit.
forming out of this goo.
Different wax
Yeah.
melting points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genius.
Of course, there's also puppet components. There's
Sure.
wires that
Yeah.
are pulling the pieces apart that then get reversed to push
Right.
them together. That's one of the main places that additional funding went, was getting
Okay.
that done. And
Money well spent.
money well spent. And part
Holy
of it
shit.
was that the original version of the scene was quote unquote very dry, like looked dry.
Oh, got it.
And they wanted it to look wetter.
Yep.
So they were like, all right, we're
Gotta
going to put
lube it
that
up,
money in.
baby.
Yeah, come
Lube,
back and lube it up.
wax, fire.
Let's see. For the bit where Frank kind of rises up above Kirsty, just put him on a seesaw with Crew standing on the other end.
A seesaw.
A seesaw. Isn't that
That's
adorable?
wholesome.
Let's see. Officially credited editor is Richard Marden, but apparently Tony Randall, who goes on to direct the sequel, also served as an uncredited additional editor. So if you're a Tony Randall fan, shout out to him. He was involved in the post-production
interesting.
process. For the music, Clive Barker, being the queer icon that he was and is, originally wanted Coyle to compose the soundtrack.
Oh, shit.
Which, oh my God, that would have been amazing. New World vetoed this choice, and instead Tony Randall suggests Christopher Young, who'd recently done Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, and Invaders from Mars.
Of course they wanted to
So,
put-
like,
yeah.
gay horror guy, feels like a good
God, that would have
fit.
been really cool, though. if you did the other.
But if you're curious, you can look up the unreleased themes for Hellraiser. It's been released now. It's a collection of the Coyle demos for the score.
No way.
Mhm.
Oh, shit.
So you can kind of hear what
oh,
might have
sick.
been.
That's amazing.
Apparently, there's like some really bad CGI at the end with like lightning flashes and stuff like that.
We need to get back to that. To
Oh,
be
I
fair.
love it. It's
looks
so satisfying.
incredible.
Yeah. Clive Barker did most of that himself with like one random dude over a weekend, like blackout drunk. Icon. Icon.
What the fuck?
I love
It's
him.
so good.
I
He's like, yeah, I don't really remember doing
love
that, but like,
him.
it worked.
Yeah. Wasn't present for that, but cool.
I was like there, but like wasn't there.
I was there, but I was
I
like
also enjoyed
in
seeing it for the
the
first time.
hell realm. Yeah. So moving on to the release. Apparently, when Clive Barker's mom first saw the movie, she like saw her son's name come up on screen and starts like crying happy tears. And Clive's like, "Mom, that's the happiest you're gonna be for the next couple hours."
Oh my god. Fair.
Yep.
Fair.
Yep.
So cute though.
I
Love a supportive
know.
mom.
It's really sweet, especially with like a film like this.
I love that she cried.
Like,
She's
yeah.
like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Hellraiser.
Look at my little Clivey up
boy.
there on the big screen. I don't know why I'm giving her like a New York accent. They're
Why is
very
it, like, certain
British,
mom-coms
but
we go to?
and we love a good censor battle story. Obviously, there's going to be a good censor battle story here
yeah.
too. In news that should come as no surprise to anybody, the movie that again was originally supposed to be titled Sadomasochists from Beyond the Grave was initially slapped with an X rating. Who could have expected?
Yeah, truly, these films were not getting away with shit, man.
To get it back down to an R, they had to cut several things. Here's kind of a laundry
Oh.
list of them. There were several shots that they cut from the first hammer murder, including a close-up of the hammer stuck into the victim's head. They cut a scene where Julia murders a man who's naked in the initial version that had to be reshot with him semi-clothed. which, like, I want to see a naked guy
Again,
get murdered.
come on, ding dongs.
Yeah,
Get
come
'em
on,
out
ding
here.
dongs.
I don't know
Come
why I
on,
called it
Clive.
that.
There was a close up of Kirsty's hand going into Frank's stomach that got cut.
That feels tame.
Yeah,
We
there-
can't have a woman penetrating a man.
truly, yeah, that's
That was a real censorship.
sadomasochists from beyond the grave. That's fine, but
Pegging
pegging
in my film?
out. Yeah. They cut Frank's head exploding, but you can see that image edited into the beginning of Hellraiser 2. So it goes on to
Ooh,
have
that
an
life.
afterlife.
Yeah.
And also Frank getting torn apart had to be shortened quite a bit.
That always is so stupid to me.
I
Like, you can have it in there,
know.
but it has to be 5 seconds,
Yeah.
not 10.
Oh, we're
Like, okay.
getting to a great quote about that from Clive Barker.
Perfect.
So, Barker himself, super quick to point out, the real censorship they faced had to do with sex, not violence.
course.
Quote, well, we did have a slight problem with the eroticism. I shot a much hotter flashback sequence than they would allow us to cut in. Mine was more explicit and less violent. They wanted to substitute one kind of undertow for another. I had a much more explicit sexual encounter between Frank and Julia, but they said, no, let's take out the sodomy and put in the flick knife. Which, like, I fucking love the flick knife.
is so, like...
I love Clive Barker so much.
my
And then
God.
he continues the quote and says,
Sorry.
we did a version of this scene which had some spanking in it, and the MPAA was not very appreciative
spanking.
of that.
Honestly, if this bitch is, like, sitting around being like, like, just
Mhm.
in her memories,
Yeah.
we needed a hotter sex scene for that to make sense.
Absolutely.
This bitch is not thinking
It-
about vanilla sex that she's
No,
already getting
it's
from
not
her
missionary,
vanilla. Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Like, come on.
You don't sit there and fantasize that
no,
hard.
No. The MPAA told me that I was allowed 2 consecutive buttock thrusts from Frank, but 3 is deemed obscene. So there's the rule.
That's the devil's
There's
number.
the official
Sienna.
line, everybody. That's the real 180-degree rule that you
buttocks
can't
thrusts.
you can't cross. No 3 buttock
Oh my
thrusts.
God.
That's obscene.
Could we do 2 a pause and then another 2?
Ooh. Really
Or
pushing
2
the
buttocks
envelope
thrusts,
here.
a spank, and
Yeah.
then you know. Stupid, man. It's so stupid.
Initially got banned in Ontario for, quote, brutal graphic violence with bloodletting throughout, horror, degradation, and torture. To get it released in Ontario, they had to cut another 40 seconds, 35 seconds of a hook torture scene, and 5
Ooh.
seconds of squirming rats nailed to a wall, which I remember that shot. They're very clearly animatronic
Yeah.
rats. I don't know why that bugged
It's
Ontario,
always-
Canada so much.
Big rat fans.
So I guess at least in that case, it was more violence than sex that they were upset
Yeah.
about, but just really interesting to me. This film was a huge commercial success. Do you want to guess how much it made back on that, like, just shy of $1 million budget?
Huge commercial. 15 million?
Double it. 30.
Holy.
Made
whoa.
30
How did I not
million
know
on a
this?
less than $1 million budget.
Oh my God. Do you think people were like, was Clive Barker like Clive Barker then? A little bit?
I think he was only just starting to be. Like, I feel like it was
Yeah.
like a similar point in the Clive Barker trajectory to, like,
It kind of was like the
when
next-
Carrie came out for Stephen
Sure.
King, where it's like this is like just what
This-
starts it almost.
Holy
Um,
fuck,
yeah,
man.
it's wild. It's wild. And I think this is, you know, Hellraiser is the thing he's most known for. So I think
Yeah.
this is what goes on to make him Clive Barker
Yeah.
as we know him today. Film just got a re-release in the US on February 5th and 6th.
I know, we saw
was
it,
like,
and
what is that?
damn.
Yeah. It's because they recently released a featurette called Under the Skin, Doug Bradley on Hellraiser, which I didn't have time to watch because
So many things.
15 pages of notes, everybody.
Yeah, holy shit.
Currently
Ooh.
holds a 70% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 73% from audiences, which is,
Oh.
I think, as close as I've ever seen those be.
Yeah.
I think both are significantly underrated again. I think this should be
Reanimator is 94, so
Yeah.
I expected this to be up there with that.
I think this is on the same level, if not potentially a little better, honestly.
I love
Yeah,
Hellraiser, so
I
I like
love-
put it.
I
Oops,
love
sorry,
both
hit the
of
mic. I
them
put it. Yeah.
a lot, but I
Mm.
think Hellraiser, even though there are pieces that are less successful, I think what it is doing as a whole is just so unique and
Mhm.
iconic and influential
Oh, for
that
sure.
like it's one of those movies that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And some of its parts are pretty good.
Yeah.
And it does a great job of showing those parts coming together on screen with different
The
layers of melting wax.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch it again. Seeing
It's
that.
right. It's so
I
satisfying.
had a fight rewatching it immediately after.
I think this very much is like a horror lover's horror movie. Like it's the kind of film that people who make horror movies really obsess over. Time Out London did a poll of horror creators that I've referenced before that put it at 80 out of the top 10 100 horror films of all time. But at the time, opinions were pretty divided, especially between the UK and the US. The UK was pretty much immediately proud of it as like a homegrown horror success story that was clearly dealing with really heady creative shit. Kim Newman, who I brought in a quote from I think last episode, specifically contrasted it to Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead as kind of contemporary horror with a much more comic tone than what this is doing, saying like this is really like it takes what it's doing pretty seriously.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's also like very sensuous and intellectual, and like there's a lot of stuff going on that wasn't the main direction horror was moving in at the time.
For sure.
The US was much less favorable. And seeing that, I was like, well, I bet you at least Ebert loved it because he's a perv. This is going to be right up his alley. Oh, how wrong I was.
How did he give Re-Animator such?
You said he gave it 3 stars, right?
3 out of 4.
Want to guess what he gave this?
1.5.
A half a star.
He got it.
This is our
wait, it's a
lowest
legacy.
Ebert review ever.
That's
I
like
think.
he's given like 4 of those, I think.
Yes.
Wait, whoa.
So he starts out his review
Is he a
with the
bad
Stephen
mood?
King quote.
Oh, great.
Saying,
That's not a great place.
well, because Stephen King has a quote from the time where he said, "I have seen the future of the horror genre, and his name is Clive Barker,"
Oh,
which we love.
yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
And so Ebert opens with that quote and then writes, "Now there's a blurb Stephen King should have written under one of his pen names. He may have seen the future of the horror genre, but he has most certainly not seen Hellraiser, which is as dreary a piece of goods as has masqueraded as horror in many a long, cold night. This is one of those movies you sit through with mounting dread as the fear grows inside of you that it will indeed turn out to be feature length."
What
Brutal.
grumpy mood was he
I know. Like, who
How did he
pissed in his
not-
cereal that morning?
Yeah,
My God.
Apparently wanted more bush and
Yeah.
blood.
Which, I mean, like, me too, but, like, that's not the
That's
movie
what I
this
just
is. Yep. Of course, this has spawned an enormous franchise. There's 9 sequels. 7 of them feature Doug Bradley as
Holy shit, are
Pinhead.
there really 9?
There's 9.
What the fuck?
There's
Where
9
the hell
sequels.
have I been?
Not even counting
hell.
the 2022 reboot, directed by David Bruckner, EP'd by Clive Barker, with Jamie Clayton as Pinhead.
Yeah.
In general, the sequels kind of follow a trajectory of the Cenobites getting less and less complex and more straight up evil from installment to installment. They start out, I think part of what makes this
9
film
is
so
a
interesting.
lot. You can only do so much.
That's too many sequels.
Yeah.
It's just too
Should've
many.
stopped at like 4.
Yeah, I agree. There was even supposed to be an HBO series in the works with David Gordon Green at the helm,
Oh.
but there hasn't been any real news on it since 2021.
I'm not gonna lie, the way like these like series are like they're just the product because I'm watching Interview with the Vampire.
Oh yeah.
I'm on season 2 finally. And it is so fucking good. And I'm like, I could see it and I bet it would be really good.
I bet it would be really good, especially
Yeah.
I feel like David Gordon Green is not a bad
Yeah.
choice to do that. But unfortunately, though, Clive had already signed away all of the rights to the story and the character when he made the first movie. Because again, he's coming from a first-time director position of like, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to get the movie made at all.
Oh fuck.
So, which is just heartbreaking. But for the film's 30th anniversary back in 2017, Barker released a limited run of just 30 masks based on his initial Hell Priest concept designs. I brought in pictures of the mask,
Yes.
and I brought in pictures of Clive Barker's original sketches, so you can see a little side by side.
God. Thank you. Oh, sick.
And you can tell it very much like it looks like a BDSM dungeon master.
Yeah, especially that
Yeah.
one. It's a gimp mask.
Oh,
For sure.
100%. And fascinatingly, in the original designs,
Ooh, this
the
one's kinda
Hell
hot, though.
Priest. Oh,
Kind of
yeah.
looks like Loki.
In the original designs, the Hell Priest has a deep throat style throat gash.
Oh.
So like Hellraiser, like look at that mask. He's got a throat
Is that
gash.
where the term necking would come from?
There
Just
you
kidding.
go. God damn it. God damn it. The terrible puns are back between that and tooth.
Forget scissoring. Moving on.
Oh God.
Moving on very quickly, Sienna. Come on.
Not
Come on.
not fast enough. According to Doug, there was also a planned crossover that got scrapped. Quote,
Ew. I don't want to know.
after its success, Dimension, which as we know,
Yep.
Dementia Pictures,
Yep.
wanted a Hellraiser Halloween movie made immediately. So it was certainly going ahead. I had a couple phone conversations with Clive about it. He was getting quietly excited.
Like Michael Myers Halloween or just Halloween themed?
Just Michael Myers Halloween.
Oh.
Yeah. Where they would encounter each other, like in a Freddy Jason style.
Absolutely
Yeah.
fucking not. Okay,
Yeah,
continue. Sorry.
wild, right?
Let me hear this out.
I had a couple phone conversations with Clive about it. He was getting quietly excited. Clive said that he would write it, and I heard reports that John Carpenter would direct, which, like,
Oh, that would
I
probably.
could see it being good
He
under
would've
those
made it good,
hands.
but-
Yeah. The version of events that I got back is that the Akkad brothers, who produced Halloween, retained control of the sequels and didn't want the crossover to be made. I guess they didn't want Michael Myers hanging around with the likes of Pinhead.
Shut the fuck up. Everyone
like-
go to bed and take a lap.
I
It would have been.
yeah.
I don't even know what.
Yeah. What I
That's
wrote
a fever dream crossover.
Yep. What I wrote down immediately after that was, oh my God, too pervy for Michael Myers, new merch idea.
We have so many merch
Yes.
ideas.
Yes. Again, a baby tee that says too pervy for Michael Myers. Like, yes, please.
Michael Myers just
Yeah.
like has like a little like BDSM like harness on though, walking around with his little gay overalls.
Yes. It's just him getting tortured by Pinhead.
Yeah,
But he
likes
loves it. Yeah. I did not write a film theory rant corner. I just put 2 quotes in that section, and I'm just gonna read them to you.
Oh, no.
Sorry, guys, that's what I've got here. From Bob Keane, the makeup guy
Mm.
again. Quote, the one thing I can say about Hellraiser is that we were putting our fingers into places where no one had really gone before in horror. The whole pain and pleasure thing. We knew we were going to push some buttons, but we knew they were risks that needed to be taken.
There were buttons that wanted to be pushed.
Yeah, we knew that those places wanted our fingers
Yeah.
inside them.
That's what he should have said.
And then from Clive Barker. And this is something that I did not know about him that makes me love him all the more, and I think is
Mm.
really important context for this. Quote, I worked as a hustler in the 1970s because I had no money. I met a lot of people you'll know and some you won't, publishers, captains of industry. The way they acted, and the way I did, to be honest, was a source of inspiration for later. Sex is a great leveler. It made me want to tell a story about good and evil in which sexuality was the connective tissue. Most
Mm.
English and American horror movies were not sexual or coquettishly so, a bunch of teenagers having sex and then getting killed. Hellraiser, the story of a man driven to seek the ultimate sensual experience, has a much more twisted sense of sexuality.
Ugh, love.
Love.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah,
Clive,
great quotes.
not only a very open member of the kink community, not
Yeah.
only queer and has been living with his partner, I think he's been living with his partner for a very long time. I'm pretty
Huh.
sure they've been in a
Oh, that's
relationship
cute.
for a very long time. But open about his own history as a sex worker, which I feel like
Yeah.
adds so much to
I
making a movie about bodies like
I'm
this.
realizing I have no concept of this man.
That's so funny because my partner had the same reaction where like immediately
Really?
after
Okay.
the movie she was like, wait,
feel
so this
good
is just
company
some
here,
like
then.
some like straight cis dude who's like making this movie like appropriating all of our
Okay.
imagery.
I'm so glad.
And I was like,
I'm so glad. I'm in good.
honey,
I'm in
I
good.
promise you this is
Okay.
not that.
I'm glad we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Again, I feel in very good company.
Well, because like normally it's not
Mm.
like queer kink positive former sex workers who make it to Clive Barker levels. And so I
Yeah.
feel like the general sense in my head is like because he
That's
lives
so
in like
cool.
the Stephen King box, I feel like there's an assumption that he's got to
For
be just
sure.
like a standard
Which,
straight dude. Because that's
honestly,
usually who gets those kinds of positions.
yeah,
But
how
Clive Barker is one of us.
Oh my god, I love
Um,
that. I love it
yeah.
so much. It really just it makes sense. It all makes
Mhm.
sense.
It's so
Yeah,
satisfying,
yeah.
right? Which is
That's why it
also
feels like it comes from that like true
yeah.
authentic place.
And so I uh gave my partner like a little bit of the Clive Barker backstory, and she was like, "Wait, okay, this completely changes my view of the entire movie. I
Yeah.
love it now. Also, so is the moral of the story cube as consent?" And I was like, "What do you mean, honey?" And she was like, "No, but actually think about it. The
Yeah.
only people that the cenobites actually really do harm to
Yeah.
are the people who are consenting to
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
who
yeah.
are asking
Absolutely.
for it.
Yeah.
Like
Cube
it
as
like plays
consent.
cube as consent. Like the one person who opens the cube and then is like, "This is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Put it back," is Kirsty.
Yep.
And she's fine.
Yeah.
She's the only one who
She's like
is
traded
fine
out for
until
someone
the
who's
end. She
yeah.
peeks inside
She's like, I'm
and is
good.
like, "I'm good." And so Hellraiser doesn't take
I
her.
wanna know
She didn't
in the
consent,
9
or she withdrew
others.
consent.
Yeah. I'm curious if that
Yeah.
follows through in the other ones, because that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Because
An
like cube is
amazing
consent, genius.
theory.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Yeah,
anyone
yeah,
else is anyone out
Cube is
there?
consent? Anybody, Bueller?
Yeah. That's amazing. Oh my
So
God,
just
I
like
love.
what
It
an
changed,
image.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love the film anyways, but it does add a different layer of looking
It makes
at
it
now.
hit very differently to know
Yeah,
that about him.
amazing.
I don't know if this is true or not, and I don't know how much of it is just because I am so sad that David Lynch is dead, and I've been rewatching all of the David Lynch stuff,
Aw.
but this movie felt so in conversation with Blue Velvet to me on this
I
watch.
gotta rewatch. We've been talking about this. I
Oh,
really
so
gotta.
good. But like between the way that kink imagery is being used in the film and the character of Frank as this like ultimate hedonist whose like journey into this like dark underbelly is what propels the plot, as the other characters kind of like are horrified but by where he's going, but can't help themselves but be drawn into his like hedonistic pleasure seeking, feels
Gives.
so connected.
I
Like,
gotta rewatch so I can
yeah, I don't know.
accurately agree with
Write in, tell me if y'all feel
I mean,
similar.
can you imagine if David Lynch directed this?
Right?
I feel like it would also vibe. So
I think it would
in that way
be
alone, I
not
think, yeah.
dissimilar,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. Agreed.
Ugh. Yep.
So good.
I think
Is that it?
that's most of my
my God.
last note was cube is consent. So yeah. That was the note that I wanted to end on.
Closing the cube on that note.
Yeah.
We
Close
actually
that
did
box
really
back up.
good. You were an hour, I was an hour.
Look
Holy
at
shit.
that.
That was amazing. That was really
Aw,
cool
go
to hear.
us.
Yeah, want to watch that
What's-
doc now out with Doug.
Yeah, Under the Skin.
Under the Skin.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, what was it called?
Mhm. Doug
Resurrection Under the Skin.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, so good. How do you feel after finally watching it? I'm so happy. I
feel
you
so
got-
seen
we
by
got
this
here.
movie.
So happy we finally got like a year and change later.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah, feels right.
I think Clive Barker's quote really hits the nail on the head about like so much of horror at this time, particularly in the 80s, which was like kind of a horror renaissance.
Oh my gosh,
But
yeah.
so much of it was like about the fear of sex and
Oh,
like
for sure.
sex as like a lot of horror is like very moralistic about sex, and it's just like really satisfying to me as a pervy weirdo to see a filmmaker who's a pervy weirdo be like, what if it was horror but like pervy weirdo friendly?
Yeah.
Like
It's like good.
yeah,
kind
but
of.
like yeah,
Like
but like
people
what if
seek
you
it.
want him to show you all of the pleasure
Yeah.
and pain in the other world? What about that?
I knew you were gonna
But
love
what
this.
if he's mommy?
What if he's mommy? What if we have gashes?
Yeah, what if Order of the Gash?
Order of gash. Oh, I'm never gonna
Ugh.
that
Yeah.
information alone was worth
Mm-hmm.
all your 15 pages of notes.
Great,
That might be
love
my
that.
favorite thing
So,
that I learned today.
Between Order of the Gash and the Dildo Lady, it
Really,
has been
the most
one
important
hell
part.
of an episode.
We'll clip those out
literally.
first.
Yep.
One hell of an episode. Oh, that's gonna be our description, isn't it?
Yep.
That's gonna
yep.
be
One hell of an episode.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see what you write for this.
This is a really.
I love
yeah,
these.
This was so much
I
fun.
love this kind of horror. I love
Yeah.
this time of horror. It really is just
It really
feels
felt
good.
like just like basking. In it.
Uh-huh.
Like just
For sure.
yeah, just
This is the-
rolling around in
yeah.
the blood.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad we finally got here to do these ones. I feel like it's
Me
been a minute
too.
coming. So
Yeah, well, because I think we've done a lot of like kind of
We've tiptoed.
more. We've done stuff that's been like gothic horror.
Yeah.
We've done some like romantic horror recently. We've done some comedy horror. This was like our first like balls to the wall Splatterfest in a while, and I really enjoyed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think the only one is Dead Alive and Evil Dead, I think would have been.
Yeah.
But like those still feel so wildly different than
Yeah,
these
and they're
films.
they're much more comedic than either of
Oh,
these.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
These ones really are a little bit
seeing like gore that is taking itself more seriously
Yeah.
is really fun.
sexy.
Yeah.
Sexy gore.
Yeah.
Bloody sexy.
And like normally that would make me nervous for our next episode because it would be
yeah.
like, where can we go from here?
Oh
But
yeah, we're going someplace completely different.
I'm
So buckle
so
up.
excited for
Me
our next
too.
pairing.
Yeah.
It's gonna go hard.
Yeah, I'm really
It's
excited to
gonna
watch
go hard.
these. Excited to watch yours.
I am excited to watch yours because this is much more typical for us. I've seen mine, you've seen yours, we've not seen each other's.
Yeah.
So I am covering.
I don't know the year.
I have you.
Okay,
I have
thank
your
you.
year. Yep.
Every time.
When we were deciding on this
guessed
yesterday, I wrote it down
yesterday.
for us.
Thank you.
So I'm covering the 1977 cult masterpiece Hausu.
I'm so excited to see it. And then I'm doing Vincent Price's House on Haunted Hill, which is 58. 9. Okay.
Mhm,
I guess
59.
50's like 6,
You're
but
very
yeah.
close. Yeah.
Which I'm so excited to talk about because it's like along with Birds, I think this is like one of my first like we talked about when you
like
asked
foundational
yeah,
horror.
it really is up there. I love Vincent Price. So yeah, we're going a wildly different direction.
Two different haunted house tales that are both very kind of luscious and over the top, but in very different ways.
I'm
Very
just from
different
imagery
ways.
alone.
Again, as I told you, Hausu is partially a musical.
I have nothing. I have no reference other than photos. I'm so excited to see my reaction to this film.
I need to know, Travis, have you seen Hausu before?
Nope.
Okay. If there's any way that you can get a screen or get a recording of
We'll
Al.
put up a
get a camera on Al so that you get their reaction to the watermelon scene. That's all I want. You know what I'm talking about, right, Warren? Yeah, great.
Oh,
Love
no.
it. Yeah. I need to know Al's reaction to the watermelon.
Trav, you have to look up. Let me know when in there.
I'll give you like
give me a timestamp.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, can't wait. So that's
we'll
my
do that
teaser
for sure.
you.
Yeah. I it's fun. I'm excited to kind of get into like more of our. It feels warm here, so like in my brain, it's like summertime.
It's summer already. It's like fully still winter,
it's
but
definitely winter and spring's the next season, not summer.
And we're still like a month away from it, but
yeah,
we are.
we're definitely like far away from spring. I'm trying to think of where to go. I don't know if we have anything else to tease. We're figuring out our Jean Cocteau picks.
We're screening Hausu at the theater.
Oh yeah, we're doing Hausu.
We're doing Hausu.
So we should either tickets will be up or up soon. So JeanCocteauCinema.com will have movie posters, theme drinks, all the fun shit that we do. Our horror picks have really been like popping off as a theater. It makes me so happy. We also do Punk Rock Wednesday, which is we're playing
playing the Doom Generation.
Yeah, we're finally playing Doom. I've been working here for 3 years, and we finally fucking got it
for this movie.
Yeah, and you've been
with
me for like a year and a half now.
We worked hard for this.
So yeah, I don't know. Again, I have no idea when these fucking episodes come out, but
it will be before.
It will be before.
Doom
Okay,
Generation.
and then
I think
we
it comes
just
out
played
the Monday, and Doom Generation is Wednesday, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay, cool.
But it is
so tickets on sale. We're doing like $10 films.
Doom Generation. It's gonna be amazing.
And then free karaoke after. We just did Repo Man. Then probably we got
Last week when you hear
Tetsuo.
this. Tetsuo Iron Man.
Yeah,
that's
that's
gonna be one.
that one's booked. So tickets should be on sale for that. If you guys have suggestions, if you want us to play things at the cinema,
send weird shit our
let us know
way.
because we're kind of trying to fuck around.
We're trying to do some weirder shit.
Yeah, I'm
which
really
I
excited
love.
about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's fun for us. Again, I still want to do like Elvira. I think there's so many things we've done.
Elvira
Here. Yeah, Re-Animator. We really want to do.
Oh, that'd be a great one for
so.
Punk Rock Wednesdays.
I think that was one of my picks.
I think
but
it was. Yeah.
anyways,
I think that's
so we
all
said
of our
that.
things.
Did our films.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah, I have no idea how long this episode's gonna be, but it's gonna be a long one, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you
Beefy.
sticking with us.
Yeah,
to the bitter, hellish end.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank
Warren.
you, Warren, for laughing along with us.
I know,
I
we got
love it
lots
when
of
that
giggles.
happens.
Yeah, thanks Trav for filming and fact checking.
Filming and fact checking.
Thanks Theo for the music.
And thanks to you all for
everything. Literally everything.
Making
We've
this
so many.
happen.
There's so many of you now. It's kind of crazy.
It's very surreal, is it not?
We actually, I'm going to do a little tease, actually. So last year, you mentioned Morgan Crypt on this episode. I am going to tease, we do have a meeting with them. We might be doing, in September, our first live show. I don't know if we're going to do one before. I'm teasing it. So,
if
we
not
really
before, sometime this year, I think a live show will happen.
So if you want to
come see us in person, see how the sausage is made, then swear off of sausages.
So yeah, just teasing that. Otherwise, you can follow us everywhere at Splice Splatter Pod. You can watch our faces on the YouTubes, and I think that's it. So until then, thanks for listening to Splice and Splatter,
the official film podcast of the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror
meets modern gore.
Until next time, we'll be right back.